A reading from the book Robin about Robin Williams. When Gary Marshall asked Halen what kind of work Robin did, she told him, he stands on a street corner, does a lot of voices and impressions, and passes the hat. Marshall was unconvinced. Are you kidding? He said. This is who you want me to hire? Well, you've got to understand. It's an awfully full hat, Halen replied. I thought that was a great line, Marshall recalled. So I said, all right, bring me the guy with the full hat. Oh, hello there. I didn't see you come in. Hello, welcome to Bitcoin Talk Show. We're joined this morning by Max Hillebrand. How's it going, Max?
Hi, Thomas, and hello, everyone watching us live on the World Crypto Network. It's going to be a great show today. We're going to take a couple of calls and just talk Bitcoin.
It's a great time. It's early in the morning for me. I think it's later in the day for Max, and it might even be a different time for you. Let us know in the comments or give us a call on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word. You could go ahead and download the program now, set up a free account, add the World Crypto Network as a friend, get some headphones, a quiet room, a microphone or a phone, and give us a call. I think you'll be all set. You might even want a glass of water, right, Max?
Yes, absolutely. Always get the glass of water. That is the most interesting thing, because your voice is going to be dry. You're going to talk a lot, and just having a sip to drink. It might not be water. It might be something different depending on where you are, what time it is. But yeah, just suit yourself.
And water's the best. Everyone should drink more water. It's fantastic. But first, we're going to do a little recap of the news just to keep you updated on what's going on today in Bitcoin. Today is Saturday, June 30th, 2018. My name is Thomas Hunt, and here's what's going on today in Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin was up 2.39% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 6,361, a high of 6,505, and a low of 5,885. That's $1 for 15,723 Satoshis, nearing the 15,000 Satoshi barrier. Last night, I read 41 of 112 pages of 2 Satoshi Aloud, 2 Satoshi with Love aloud. Making an audiobook is hard. I'm almost halfway there, and I'm going to have to do a whole second pass where I edit it. I was trying to do it perfect, and that was way too difficult and way too much pressure to read 100 pages perfectly. So instead, there's a bunch of mistakes, and I'm going to try to edit them out. So the first pass is get it all read, then get it all edited, then it'll be some kind of an audiobook. But it's just like anything else with a video. If you're going to make a 5-minute video, you're going to watch it about 5 times. So you have to have about half an hour of watching time ready to review that video. And you have to be the biggest fan of that video or that audiobook, or you have to be paid, whatever it is, because the detail and the discipline of editing perfectly is incredibly hard. So, but it's kind of fun. It's kind of rewarding, and I like doing it. And I think it's going to be a good audiobook. There's a lot of twists and turns that you guys don't know about. But we'll try to do a reading of the book later. I'm not sure where we are in the book anymore, but we'll have to go back to a previous section because I know I'm actually a little ahead on the audiobook version now, but not quite ready to play you the audiobook because it's still all in parts and with errors and stuff. But my goal is... Yeah.
If you just read it twice over again and we get a second chance of listening to that great book, well, that's not so bad, is it now?
There we go. And my goal is to eventually have it so that I can just play you sections of the audiobook on the show. And then I don't even have to read it perfectly because I've already read it perfectly and edited it. So that'll be pretty cool. I'm getting close to that. But the first goal is just to read the entire book and then get it all in the can. And then I can edit. So it's really strange, like editing and all these things. Like I tried to do it section by section, and I found that all the time that I spent making a new audio file, saving the audio file, and so forth was wasting my time. And I just needed to keep reading the thing. So then I started reading it in like 20 or 30-minute sections. And I made more mistakes, but I covered more ground. So different ways to do things depending on how perfectionist you are or if you can edit afterwards.
Yeah, good points. And especially perfection is good to bring or to produce a good quality product in whatever form you're producing something. But if you are a 100% perfectionist, then this hinders you of actually completing it, because the first step is always just to start, and starting is never perfect. And it will take you a long time before you actually reach a state of 100% perfection. And if your goal is to be 100% perfect all the time, you will not finish anything. And so there's always this trade-off between perfection and content quantity. So how much content can you produce, and how perfect is it? You cannot produce a lot of content that is really perfect, and you cannot produce, it's not really good to produce not that much content at all, and it is of shitty quality. So it's always a trade-off.
It really is. I read this book called by Anne Lamott called, well, it's an inappropriate title, but here it goes. It's called Shitty Rough Drafts. And what she says is that it's important to just get started, to just get it down on the page. And I know for myself, a lot of the problem comes that you compare yourself to Shakespeare or David Mamet or somebody who can really write. And you're like, I want it to be like that, and I want it to be perfect, and I want it to be moving, and I want it to be like King Lear, and you remember it forever, and it's just the greatest book. And you won't write a dang thing that way. I've written lots of nothing with that comparative attitude and with that negativeness. So you just have to accept the first draft's going to be kind of okay. And then the other thing that I didn't get when I was young, and they told me a bunch of times, but I didn't listen, is that whole, you have to write 100 shitty stories before you can write one good one. And nobody likes to believe that. It's better to believe that I'm a natural and I'm perfect the first time. But really, writing dozens of pretty much bad stories has led me to the point where I think I can write a better story. So.
And it's practice, as with everything else. You never wake up an expert. That's just not how it works. You always have to put in the effort and the time and the diligence of actually making a good product. And that just takes time, and it costs your energy, your labor, and your capital. And yeah, but you have to do this, because otherwise, there is no free lunch. You cannot just wake up and be an expert basketball player. No, you have to go to the gym six times a week and practice a lot until you reach some level of perfection.
And even the experts we do have are mostly faking it till they make it. They're all started off at the same thing. Like we were talking the other day about Andreas and what a polished speaker he's become. But if you look back in the earlier days, he was a little rougher. He was still really smart. He's still really great, but he was a little rougher. All his practice made him so much better at it. And again, if you want to do that, if you want to make speeches like Andreas, or if you want to write books, or if you want to do anything, you've got to start out with this attitude that it's okay to fail, and it's okay to not know how to do something. When I started to learn Aikido, I wasn't really good at moving my body around. And I might be smart in other areas, but I wasn't smart in that area. So it took a lot of help from my friends in Aikido to get me up to level where I could do it. And now that I can do it, I feel really good about it. And I feel like I've conquered something that was difficult for me. And I think that's a great feeling, but it takes a lot of practice and a lot of work to get there. But I think you can do it.
Absolutely. And it's the same with organizing a meetup, right? I mean, you started the new meetup in Las Vegas, and that is not easy. You need to get the people there, and then you need to be present, regularly, and not just do a one-off thing. And if nobody shows up, then give up. No, because it takes time, it takes dedication. And yes, it's difficult, and yes, you have to put a lot of effort in it, but eventually it's definitely going to be worth it. But it's only going to be worth it if you put in the dedication and the time. And people like you, who have done the World Crypto Network for 4 or 5 years now, you have put in the effort, and it clearly shows.
Well, that's the other thing. It's kind of a trick. It's kind of a shortcut. But if I look back on it, when I did Mad Bitcoins, I was just like, well, every day I'm going to do an episode. And that was my personal choice, my personal deadline, right? I was like, midnight, episode out by then, noon is a little better. But once I did it, and I did 5 episodes a week for 2 years, and I did like 600 episodes, I got really good at doing those episodes. I can write them pretty fast. I can think of things to say. I can think of clever jokes. I keep all my stuff set up. I keep everything, ready to record. And that's why I got this new computer. Thanks so much, donor out there, for the new computer. This new computer is just plugged in. I just sit down, microphones here, cameras here, computers here, keyboard. I haven't had a desktop in probably a decade or something. I mean, I have my old Mac Pro is a beautiful machine. It's a cheese grater. But I got it from my old work, and I haven't worked there in a long time. So it's really great to have a new computer, and I think it's gonna be fun. But let's get into the news. Let's talk a little bit about what the mainstream media says is going on with Bitcoin. I think you guys are gonna like this.
That's always fun.
Bitcoin and Ether surge 11% as crypto market suddenly adds 26 billion overnight. And yes, that is a roller coaster. Good point. Bitcoin's plunge means one thing. Calls for rallies to 25,000 by year end are fading fast. It's funny, you can see the difference between the article that was published a little later and the article that was published a little earlier. And this guy was probably right at 9:37 a.m., but he wasn't right by 5 p.m. It's very strange. It happens so fast. And again, he's trying to call them out. So Bitcoin bloodbath nears .com levels as many tokens go to zero. What I like about this headline is the zero. If there's a token out there that went to zero that still has a functioning network, I would like to buy it all, because I'll bet you could sell it for 1 tomorrow. There's no way something that has a functional network is actually going to go to zero. I agree several of the tokens in the distant past, Namecoin, Megacoin, Peercoin, all these things on deadcoins.com, they've gone to zero, but that means that you can't trade them. You can't get them off the exchange. The exchange probably isn't going to sell them to you because it's a non-functional network. So yeah, I don't think zero is the right. I think 0.1 or they went very low, certainly, but zero, I don't see that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you only need to find one person that is willing to take the bag, and that's all you need. And eventually you will find one person that is gonna buy it. It's only a question of the price. But I agree, handing out a rare good is never the right thing to do, or never the most optimal thing to do, because you will always find someone that is at least giving you a bit more, at least something. So yes, if the network completely breaks down, then yes, it is a complete useless thing. And if it is a huge scam like Peercoin was, for example, then yeah, it's probably going to be worthless. But maybe you will still find someone, and even if he just wants to put it up in his museum and brag that he has some.
And I know for Bitcoin, we have a lot of people waiting for the bottom. And I know all kinds of people are always telling me, they're like, if Bitcoin went to $15, if Bitcoin went to $1, I would buy them all. I would back the truck up. I would take out all the loans. I would max out all my credit cards, all these things. And $1, might not ever go back down that low. But we've got people ready at any point, ready to get that Bitcoin if it drops. And it was pretty low lately. I don't know if it's over. As it says here from Seeking Alpha, Bitcoin has no price floor. The latest Bitcoin valuation approach, the miner's break-even, is flawed. The lowest cost producer floor theory also ignores some key economic differences with Bitcoin. Break-even approaches have little bearing on Bitcoin fundamentals. Stay focused on demand-side drivers. It looks like a very good article from Seeking Alpha. Even if I don't agree with him that there's no floor, he's talking about the miner's break-even, the fear that the price of mining a Bitcoin would go underneath the price of a Bitcoin. But he disagrees. He doesn't think it's possible. He's saying that the mining economics are different, and this looks pretty complicated, but I agree with him that mining economics are different. So what do you think, Max?
Mining is really difficult, and to get a grasp on that, as with anything in Bitcoin, because it requires holistic knowledge, and you can't just be a one-horse pony to really understand it. And what he's talking about, that there is a lower bound because the miners have a cost. Well, yes, that is definitely true. But I mean, every miner is different. Those are all individual people or companies mining Bitcoin. And they all have a completely different background. They are in different locations. They have different expertise. Maybe some started earlier, some started later. And of course, they pay different amounts for their electricity. If you are next to a huge hydro dam, well, then you're going to get your electricity for 2 cents, 3 cents per kilowatt hour. And if you get your electricity for that low, you're going to make money pretty much nonstop, because the average of electricity is maybe something between 7 to 10 cents, euro cents per kilowatt hour. Sorry, I don't know the dollar price. But if you are much below that, it pretty much doesn't matter how far we drop, because you will still be marginally the most profitable miner. And this means that you will be profitable much longer than all the others. So the other people, the inefficient miners that do not have cheap electricity, that did not allocate their capital in a good way, those will be priced out of the market and they will lose money. Well, yeah, because they're not efficient enough. Mining requires immense efficiency, because otherwise you're not going to be profitable. And that's a free market for you.
It also depends how long your timeline is. Yesterday, we talked about those drug dealers on the Silk Road or something else, one of the Silk Road clones, and that they wanted to trade their money for dollars immediately. And this led them open to easy capture by the FBI, who posed as someone willing to trade dollars for dirty Bitcoin. Seemed like a natural thing, but again, they wanted their money and they were blinded by it. In the same way, if these miners have a long enough timeline, if they have a bunch of actual dollars in reserve, not just money invested in mining equipment, money set aside to pay for electricity, but if they have actual rainy day money and they've planned this for 5 years or 10 years, they're just going to hold. They're going to hold their Bitcoin. They're going to get more. They're going to see it as a good thing, and they're going to keep doing it. So I think it's very confusing when these media people look at it and they say, these big miners have lots of money they can hold. Obviously, all the small miners, people in their houses, you're paying the electricity bill month to month. You're pretty much selling what you earn to pay for what you're trying to do. Those guys are going to get run right out. But these big firms will be fine if they're professional businesses run by professional people.
Yes, all good points. And we have in the chat here, Rad is saying that price is determined by supply and demand. Duh, obviously. And there are no guarantees or no floors. And he's absolutely right. The price is determined by supply and demand, and that is an economic law. However, where we have to be really careful here is that we do not confuse individual supply and demand with something that the Keynesian economics call aggregate supply and demand. And every time in economics, when you hear the word aggregate, you know that it's just, wishy-washy words that don't really mean anything, because we cannot aggregate human valuation. I cannot say, well, Thomas likes to drink, I don't know, a nice cup of water, and I like to drink 2 cups of water, and so our combined valuation is 7 utils. Well, what is 7 utils? And where did you get that number from? That's just arbitrary stuff. Real supply and demand basically means that you, as an individual entrepreneur, you have to guess or you have to estimate how many products are you going to sell in the future to your consumers. And that is the only calculation that you can make and that you have to make. And if you make a wrong calculation on that, you underestimated or you overestimated the demand for your good. And this means that you put up too high of a price and nobody wants to buy it.
I'd just like to thank everyone for giving us a thumbs up and a share. We have more than 105 viewers right now. This is very cool. The more thumbs up we get, the more live viewers we get. And one time we had as many viewers as NASA. They were broadcasting live views from space in high definition. And we were broadcasting people talking about Bitcoin, and we were beating them. And at one point we learned that, and we told our people about it, and we kind of did a mission into NASA's chat. And we had a whole bunch of fun telling NASA about Bitcoin, and they started banning us. And we didn't mean to raid them, but we did. So give us more thumbs up. Let's beat NASA again, and then we'll go on another raid.
Well, okay, we have already beat NASA, but I guess SpaceX really has much more, live visitors or live spectacles. So maybe we can beat SpaceX next.
Elon Musk, you're going down. You got a target on your head. All right, let's get some more news in here. Bitcoin soars 10% in 12 hours as market follows example. I don't know what that means. I guess the stock market's up as well. But remember, the stock market's closed. It's the weekend. So I don't know if he's looking at after hours trading. Oh, he's saying market like all the altcoins. Oh, yeah. No shit, guy. Did you just get here? Is it Tuesday already? Yeah, the altcoins follow Bitcoin. Good one, guy. Mainstream media with a big brain. All right, here we go. Some cryptocurrency investors are giving up on Bitcoin and cashing out of Coinbase. This must have been before the little bump. But yeah, again, People can buy and sell Bitcoin. What's wrong with that? Max, do you see any headlines like this when people sell their Apple stock? Is it like some investors are selling their Apple stock? Oh, this is just terrible. You can buy and sell stocks.
Well, and you know, every time someone is buying, someone is also selling. And every time someone is selling, someone is buying. And so who of those two trading partners is correct? Well, we don't know. Some of them are, some of them are not. What we can say is that both came on this marketplace voluntarily, and they both thought that they will be better off. So the buyer thought that the price is going to go up, and the seller thought that the price is going to go down. And they both had different informations, you know, the asymmetry of information. And they thought, well, I think I have a better idea than the other guy. And the other guy thought that, well, no, actually, I have the correct idea. And they both came together voluntarily and decided to trade. Well, who of them is going to win? Both of them already have. Because if they would not have won, they wouldn't have engaged into that transaction. Because a priori, before they did the transaction, they had the choice. Do I freely want to trade? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, then this means this is the highest valuation that they can get. If they say no, well, I didn't sell my Bitcoin. I say no all the time to selling my Bitcoin. Doesn't really matter.
It's almost like a free and open market where many participants are making their own decisions, and we're in a process of price discovery for Bitcoin. And the only thing we really know is that the price is not zero. But the mainstream media hasn't figured that out yet. They still think it could be zero. So they're very interested in anything that's not zero. They're like, that's not zero yet, but we thought it could be zero.
Yeah, and I like the headline here because they say they are giving up on Bitcoin and cashing out of Coinbase. Well, first of all, if you are using Coinbase, you're not using Bitcoin. Okay, it's a certificate on Bitcoin. It's not Bitcoin yourself, because it's only your Bitcoin when you hold the private keys. So get that into your head. That's the most important thing in Bitcoin. But then it's interesting that they are cashing out of Coinbase, which means they are cashing out their fiat money from a centralized bank to another centralized bank. So they never have control over the fiat either. So those people that cashed out their fiat out of Coinbase thought that they could actually secure their dollars, taking them off the exchange, but it's actually completely wrong. They could secure the Bitcoin when holding the private keys. And that's how you cash out of Coinbase, when taking ownership over your finance.
Moving on to the next article, BitMEX CEO, Bitcoin will move to $50,000 by the end of 2018. This is a pretty interesting prediction. As you know, BitMEX is the place that has Bitcoin futures. BitMEX, I think they had Bitcoin Cash futures. They have Ethereum futures. So if anybody has the behind the scenes data, it's this BitMEX guy. So I don't know what he's saying. He's saying a volume pump 5. Yeah, so this happened already. Let's see. The CEO of BitMEX, up, up, up. He's got 50,000 end of year. CNBC fast money. He thinks anything that goes up to 20,000 in 1 year can have a correction down to 6,000. So once again, we might have found the floor. Everybody thinks it'll go back up, or at least some people do. And this guy specifically thinks $50,000 a coin. That's a lot.
Well, and if he's saying that, you know, anything that can go up from 1,000 to 20,000 within a year, that it is completely normal if it goes down back to 6,000. Oh no, that's so bad. It dropped drastically. And no, it's still 6x in 1.5 years. That is still amazing. No, we are still up a lot in a long time horizon. And, you know, exponential growth is not sustainable. You cannot keep doubling all the time. Eventually, you will have to correct and get back to a baseline from which then you can start doubling again. So we just need a break sometimes. You all know how hard it is to be in a bull market when the price is everything and everybody wants to talk about Bitcoin. This really is annoying because you don't get much work done. And now we have time to actually get some work done. That's nice.
That is nice. Let's see what else we've got. Bitcoin skids under 6,000, closing in on 60% loss for the year. Oh, it's just for the year, because I think we're down 70, maybe even 80% recently. Let's see. Here we go. This is a good article. Bitcoin will go up again based on this technical signal. And it says that the Williams percentage indicator that says Bitcoin might see a significant price reversal The WLPR, again, we get into jargon, helps determine whether an asset is oversold or overbought. Presently, some experts believe the WLPR for Bitcoin is showing an imminent reversal of the downtrend that characterized Bitcoin prices in 2018. So this is the first positive technical signal that I've seen. I don't know why they haven't been talking about this before. I know we talked about the Meyer multiple for a while there, and that doesn't seem to work when Bitcoin's just going straight down. But this is interesting. And again, they quote that the Bitcoin gained $500 in 24 hours as proof of this technical signal. Of course, if it hadn't gained $500, would they still have put out this article? I don't know. Maybe. It's still pretty. It's a bullish signal, but we haven't had too many of those, and we're still pretty well down from where we were before.
Yeah,
But it
and
is a nice bump.
there are so many different indicators, so many different things that you can look when trying to guess the price. And yes, some of them might be right. Historically speaking, some of them might have predicted the future accurately, but the question is, will they do so today again? And well, most likely, no, they will not. And yes, if you put together several of those little indicators, maybe you find a pattern, but as soon as you find a pattern, someone else has already found it. And that is the definition of a good and functioning market. And this means that if you think you have the advantage, maybe someone has already placed a bet against you, because he knows that eventually you're going to find it. And it's just so difficult to think or to know when you actually are the first one that has this information, and if that information is correct and actually useful, and if it then later will be represented in the price. So it's just, I think, almost impossible to predict that kind of stuff.
Another article. Let's see what else we got. How your smart fridge might be mining Bitcoin for criminals. Is the web browser on your phone slower than usual? It could be mining Bitcoin for criminals. I love this. Make people afraid of everything. I'm afraid of my phone. I'm afraid of my computer. They're all stealing my money and secretly mining Bitcoins. Even right now, I think this Satoshi page, I'd love it if somebody made a new one. Because this one does start a coin miner and starts mining for Bitcoins right here in my web browser. Oh, bad. What do you think, Max? Are they mining for Bitcoins in your web browser? The pennies these thieves receive? Maybe if they could hack like 1,000 fridges at the same time, it would be a pretty good deal, like a Silicon Valley episode or something.
Well, it is definitely funny that now your fridge is mining Bitcoin. And the saying that on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog, and on Bitcoin, nobody knows you're a fridge. No, actually, it's really true, because your fridge can mine Bitcoin just as well as any other computer. But of course, it is not going to be efficient, because your fridge maybe has a really bad CPU that doesn't have that much computing power, because it doesn't have to. It's only a fridge. And if you try to outcompete professional miners that are running professional databases and have professional mining equipment, ASIC chips, cooling, cheap electricity, and professionals in networking and hardware, mining farm building, then your fridge is just not going to make some money. Yes, it might be true that it's going to mine some other shitcoin that doesn't really have any hashing power, and so that still a bad CPU can still make some profit. And of course, if you just put a bunch of fridges onto your botnet, maybe in the aggregate, it will work out, and maybe it will make you a bit profit. But then again, the question is, should you do that? And is it really worth it? Bothering the people with their slower browser and everything, and stealing their computing power just for you to make a bit, some bucks? I think there's better ways to spend your time.
What I like about this article is I like to let the old imagination go. And I think, what if you read this the wrong way and you said, the best way to mine Bitcoin is with a smart fridge? Then you got together like 50 smart fridges in a warehouse and you're like, we're going to do it. We're going to make so much Bitcoin. And you're just burning all this extra electricity to refrigerate the smart fridges. And I don't know. I just think there's a lot of fun in this article.
Well, I guess on a fridge, the cooling system for the CPU is at least given, because it is producing cool air.
It's right there. It's right there. The whole place would be cold. I mean, it would be like, it's right. So it's better than water cooling. I just put my computer straight up in a fridge.
Well, I actually do think that putting your phone in a fridge is one of the best things you can do of shutting it up and making sure that you're not being listened to and watched by the phone. Because almost no radiation or electromagnetic frequencies can leave the fridge because it is so well isolated. So I think Edward Snowden, when he was whistleblowing and in Russia and all those hotels and being as secretive as possible, he always put all his phones and all the computers of the reporters that were interviewing him, and he put them inside a fridge because he apparently knew that it was rather secure. So I don't know how secure this is going to be, but maybe you can even then mine anonymous while nobody is using the microphone on your fridge to do something. I don't know.
And this might be a wives' tale, but I've heard that your fridge is decent as a well, some people told me you could use the fridge as a fireproof safe. But then other people told me during those fires in Northern California, there weren't any fridges left. So it depends on the heat. So if your house catches on fire just a little bit, your stuff will be safe in the fridge. But if your house really, really, really catches on fire, your fridge is toast too. Another fun thing you could do with the fridge is people used to freeze their credit cards. They used to put them in a block of ice so they couldn't spend. You might want to wrap your Trezor or your Ledger in a Ziploc bag first. But I'll bet you could freeze it in a block of ice and keep yourself from panic selling on your Trezor or your Ledger. So that'd be pretty cool. Send me a picture of your Trezor frozen in ice. But again, put it in a Ziploc bag or something first. It might be dangerous.
I guess that is the ultimate cold storage, right?
Jokes.
I'm sorry. No, but honestly, private key security is really important. And yes, you really should back up your private seeds, and you should make sure that they are somewhere safe where maybe you cannot get there easily, and maybe not you alone can go there, that you need the help of someone else. Simply because if you are being coerced or forced by an attacker with the $5 wrench to go to your secret location and give them the seeds, well, if you can easily do this, then it's not really secure. So your deep, deep, deep cold storage that you really do not want to touch for the next 5 to 10 years, your HODL stash, that should be as inaccessible to you as possible. Yes, you should have, a few Satoshis, a few millibits on a ledger that is maybe on your keychain that you can use easily and accessible. Yes, but don't keep all your life savings in that one, hardware wallet. And a good protocol for that is the Glacier protocol, which tells you exactly how to create a secure cold wallet and a paper wallet and how to do that securely. And it's a great protocol.
So it's funny, we're up to 144 viewers, but no one is talking in the chat. Everybody must have fallen on their keyboards or something. Or maybe they're just having a nice, relaxing Saturday morning. But go ahead and enjoy it. Here we go, another article. Japanese economist explains why another Bitcoin price surge is unlikely. They must have published this before the little Bitcoin price surge. But yeah, you'll never see a rapid surge again. Oh, that lasted long. The price of Bitcoin is a third of what it was in December. True fact. The price goes down, blah, blah, blah. I'm not really seeing it with this article, but what I do find interesting is over here on the side. And remember, this is the creepy website. This is bitcoin.com. You don't know which side they're on. Are they trying to report on Bitcoin or are they trying to worship Bitcoin Cash? But it says here, make Bitcoin great again via viral videos. Boy, that's hard to say. A tale of two coins, or two idiots, I guess. But oh, I see. He's got the old Make Bitcoin Great Again's hats. That's a Samson Mao hat. That's funny. They've repurposed that to a Bitcoin Cash hat. And I love it here that his Mercedes says, bitch, please. I can't believe they're going with bitch, please as their slogan. It's so offensive. It's so kind of urban. I get in trouble for saying that, but you know what I'm trying to say here. Bitch, please is not an expression used by Roger Ver. But again, it says it on all his shirts and stuff. So, but once again, I want to say, at least they're supporting their community. Say what you will about Bitcoin Cash, but this guy here made apparently 2 viral videos, and he's already getting interviewed by Bitcoin.com, and he's already getting promoted. And I'll bet Roger dropped $1 million on him. So if you made 2 videos, imagine if you made 1,000 videos. But Bitcoin people are different. So,
but Thomas, do you know someone that has actually made 1,000 videos? Who would do something like that?
that's what I think. It's crazy to make 1,000 videos about Bitcoin Cash or maybe Bitcoin. Yeah, I know.
The true thing.
It's out
Yeah.
there, man.
And I mean, now that they have the Make Bitcoin Great Again hat, do they actually have one thing that is original? Like, I'm asking honestly, because it seems like everything they're doing is old Bitcoin stuff that they just repurposed. I have not seen one original thing, either in the code or in the slogans or whatever. Okay, yes, they rotated the logo. I guess that's kind of original. And they did the bitch please thing, which, come on, it's really not a good slogan. And come on, do something unique. Do something that hasn't been done before. Be not boring. Be interesting.
It's only a matter of time before we see mad Bitcoin Cash. Everybody's just stealing. Yeah, I thought it was pretty bad that they just rotated the logo left. I do kind of like this dollar thing they have going on, that it's a rectangle now. It's kind of like a dollar bill. That's pretty good. But once again, dollar bills are bad. Cash is bad. These are old symbols. I don't know who you're advertising to, but millennials don't use cash. Maybe they should have shaped their logo like an iPhone or something. Everyone uses iPhones or Androids or whatever.
Yeah. And what is also really bothering me is that, Bitcoin.com, although, we might have the differences in philosophy and opinion and in which coin is the good one, I guess, but uploading such an article saying that economists explain, as if economists have any clue, why another Bitcoin price surge is unlikely, which we know for a fact to not be true at all. And why do you upload such a FUD article on your network? I would never. I don't see any value in this. Come on, do something productive and don't just copy other stuff and provide FUD on your network. That's boring.
Let's see what other articles we've got this morning. 27% of England's male millennials say Bitcoin is a better investment than property. And that's something coming from England. As you know, London is one of the places like San Francisco or maybe Manhattan where people have figured out there's only so much land in London. If you can get your hands on some land in London or San Francisco or Manhattan, you're set, right? But they're actually arguing against that here. They're saying that they would rather have Bitcoin than property. And I think this also goes in line a lot with the general beliefs of the millennials and the other generations. They're more into experiences. They want to say, I climbed a mountain, or I went to a concert, or I saw something really cool, rather than having property like I have a really nice car or I have a really nice camera. They would rather do something. I'm a little bummed that it says male. I really wish it just said everybody. And I really think, look at the article cover and stuff here. Who are they highlighting in the middle? We need girls. We need women into Bitcoin. I would love to see whatever we can do to get them on board, to get them involved. Once again, it's a different community. I reach out to my community of computer geeks. I think we need more women Bitcoiners to reach out to other women Bitcoiners and tell them how great it is. So what do you think,
Yes.
Max?
Well, the article says that they do no longer invest in property, but that doesn't make any sense, because property is an attribute. It's an economic law. Who owns what? That is the property. And property can be anything. You can hold property in a banana, you can hold property in a house, in real estate, you can hold property in a stock, and you can hold your property in Bitcoin. Because guess what? Bitcoin is a scarce good. We talked about that in one of the last shows. This means that it is unique. If I give you my Bitcoin, I no longer have it. This is the double spending problem. And therefore, we have property rights in Bitcoin. And you can invest your money in property, which is just, well, you own stuff. That's all the property is. So what I think they are saying is that they mean real estate. And should you put your money into real estate is the question. Well, if you follow the Austrian theory of the business cycle, you realize that if the central bank prints money nonstop and hands that money out for house builders, for people that take on credit, this means that the people that actually do not have enough money to own a house, to build a house, that they do it nevertheless. And this means the demand for housing increases. And if something increases in demand, well, the price is going to increase as well. But if this demand is not sustained with good savings, but rather with newly printed money, which just means fraudulently taking money from savers, then this creates a bunch of malinvestments. And this means that the people, they take money from others to invest in a bad product. And eventually that will crash. And we've seen that in 2000, we've seen it in 2007, that especially those areas in the economy with a high production or with many production stages, and that were mainly financed via debt, those rose up while the Fed was printing money. And then as soon as they no longer could sustain that, it crashed down. And this is most likely going to happen again. And it's not only real estate this time, but it is all kinds of assets. It's the stock market as well. So we have a huge bubble, and millennials or people in general should really be careful if they would want to invest in something that is this artificially inflated. And then the question is Bitcoin inflated as well? What do you think, Thomas? Is Bitcoin a better store of value than real estate?
It's tough to say. It depends where you buy the real estate. It's also about the volatility. I used to be doing pretty well in Bitcoin, and now I'm not. And that was about 6 months. So I don't think you'd be hard pressed to find any real estate investment where you'd be turned over in 6 months, except maybe beachfront property wiped out by waves, an island that's underwater, things like that. So I think, again, you just have to split it up into percentages, put some in real estate, some in Bitcoin. I think long-term, Bitcoin has more potential upside than almost any real estate except, San Francisco, London, Manhattan. But how long do you have to wait? And remember, you always need a place to live. So it's always good to have a little real estate, I think. But I've been distracted now. Let me see if I can share my Photoshop screen. It's not working. Oh no, wait, there. No. Maybe this is
always the technical issues, right? It's hard, guys. It's
hard.
Well,
I want so much more here because they got me all distracted on this mad Bitcoin Cash idea. I think it'll be fun. So right here, I got my Photoshop. I got my screenshot from that web page, and I was just going to do a little bit of this, and then maybe some of this, and just put this on this right here, like that, booty boom, and a little of this to get rid of some stuff. But yeah, I think we could get this done in like 5 seconds here. We'll be like,
yeah, that is a live Photoshop tutorial by madbitcoins on how to create your own Mad Bitcoin Cash. So if you want to make a fork, if you want to make a copy, do it, and let's see if it's better or not. But I still prefer the original Mad Bitcoins.
Well, this is looking pretty good. I think this is about as best as I can get it for right now. Let me get out of this program. Stop selecting that. So there it is. Your Mad Bitcoins, Bitcoin Cash. Funny stuff. But let me turn this screen share off and turn it back on. Let's see if we got some more news stories today. We're still kicking around Bitcoin in the mainstream media. Lightning Network really does solve Bitcoin scaling. Andreas Antonopoulos. Glad to see Andreas making a positive statement again, talking about Bitcoin. For a long time there during the scaling debate, you didn't hear very much from Andreas, and he kind of saw it as a political thing that he didn't want to be involved in. And although I'm rarely critical of Andreas, I was critical of him about that. I think that there are a lot of times where we need the strong voices in our community to stand up during a political time. And there's even some ideas, I don't have the quote right with me, but staying silent or staying neutral in a time of crisis is actually aiding the enemy. We need people to make decisions and to say that SegWit is awesome. And we did that over and over again, and we didn't like the big blockers the whole time. We just disagreed with it. And I think that helped lead us to Lightning Network, the UASF, things like this, people talking about it, developers talking about it. We can't just wait and see who wins and then join the side that wins. That's not helping anybody. I mean, that's fine. I'm glad to have him back on the team and supporting Lightning and everything. And I don't say that he ever not supported Lightning, but just we needed him during that political moment. And we need all of our political leaders and our talking heads and everything we can get. And what do you think, Max?
Yeah, it's really a tough position to be in, right? To be called the Bitcoin Jesus and to be one of the most loved by the community. I mean, who doesn't like Andreas? He has done so much, and he's such a great speaker. And I'm here mainly because of Andreas. Andreas was the first one that really explained Bitcoin to me. And I watched pretty much every video from that guy because he's just amazing in every form. And there's a lot of pressure if you are that well known in the community. And if that many people trust your opinion, and that's important, they trust Andreas. And that's really, really tough for Andreas, because don't trust, verify. He says that over and over and over again. But eventually, because he's such a open figure, well, sooner or later you are gonna trust his opinion because you know that it's legit. And in such a divisive and political opinion, as they made the Bitcoin scaling debate to be, well, it's a really difficult problem. But where I applaud Andreas is that he stuck to his educational side, and he just kept producing the Q&A videos and all the talks and all the educational material, and he gave you the opportunity to decide for yourself whether or not you are a big blocker or a small blocker, whether you think that we should scale on chain and maybe sacrifice decentralization and the ability of running your own full node, as you should, or if we should maybe more focus on making the system a bit more efficient with, for example, a SegWit, and then focus on second layer technologies, such as the amazing Lightning Network that solves many, many problems. So I applaud him for his decision in just sticking to education and trying to minimize the political exposure. But yes, absolutely, we really do need to, and we really should try to stick together, especially if the decision, especially regarding SegWit, is really, really clear. SegWit is just amazing in every shape or form, and it breaks ASICs boost, and that's a good thing.
I also think there's a little bit of this kind of Dunning-Kruger, or kind of when you're a smart person, you don't want to say anything stupid, because then you won't be seen as a smart person anymore. So this might lead you to not say anything. And I just wanted to take this time to promote a little thing I put on the internet a few years ago because it disappeared. But if you search for James Murphy interview on Google, you'll find this one right here in the middle that says, "Interview with James Murphy of LCD Sound System about how to deal with failure." And this is a really powerful video where he talks about Infinite Jest, and he talks about comparing himself with the author of Infinite Jest, and that he hadn't done anything and that author had done so much. And he talked about his life growing up as a smart person and how he never got any credits for being hardworking or diligent. He was just clever, right? He was clever at his music, and he was clever at the things he did, and he never had to apply himself. And later, he realized that that wasn't working out, right? His life wasn't working out how he planned, and he had to change it. And this led him to create his own music and to become an incredibly famous artist really quickly. And he talks about all of it in this interview. And I really think you guys should check it out. Interview with James Murphy about how to deal with failure. And as you can see, it's done really well, 298,000 views. And what else I really like about this video, if it'll show it to me, is the comment section. A lot of people, when I saw this video, I didn't make this interview. I've never met James Murphy. It would be fantastic though. But it's like a Swedish interview, and the guy just did a really good job. And I saw that the interview had disappeared from the internet. The Swedish side had taken it down. So I was like, well, I'll re-upload this. It's not my usual tactic, but I want it to be available. And you see here, this guy says, "I watch this every week." And holy shit, man, James Murphy helped me out so much in life. And I can change. And it's just, there's just a lot of great comments here. And I appreciate all of them. And I appreciate everybody for watching this video. So check out James Murphy interview on Google. It should be right there.
Hey, that's amazing, and really good that he helped people out. And that's the main reason why we're doing this, to provide you with some value and to help you on your journey. And ask your questions right in the comments. And talking about this, we have a great comment by Solaris Streams in the chat, and it's a twofold thing. And so he says that on-chain scaling equals the increasing value of the chain itself, and off-chain scaling, that is second layer solutions, means that you increase the value of the Lightning Network or the other second layers. And it's a really interesting question, but I do not think that you can generalize it as such, because if you only scale on-chain, this means that every transaction that everyone makes is saved on every computer in the network. And this is just really costly. Of course, because if you make a copy of something, and if you send transactions several times to each other, then yes, this will cost stuff. And high costs do not automatically increase the valuation. And with second layer solutions like Lightning Network, this, in my opinion, not only increases the value of the second layer itself, because we have this network effect in the second, a separate network effect in the second layer. So the more people use Lightning Network, the more easier it is to use, the more transactions you can send, the more capacity we have. And this means, yes, that the more people use it, the higher the value of the Lightning Network. But what is Lightning Network? It is just a completely or normally signed Bitcoin transaction that you can broadcast at any time to the main network. But you just choose not to do this unless something wrong happens. So Lightning Network itself is also the first layer. You can at any time close the Lightning channel and make it a base layer transaction again, because it is 100% a valid base transaction, a on-chain transaction. You just choose not to put it on-chain. And so I think that Lightning Network actually has the power to increase both. You increase the value of the second layer, because the more people use it, the more people can transact with it, and more capacity and la-di-la-di-la-di. But you also increase the base layer, because you now have more space for all the transactions that actually need to be 100% trustless and 100% censorship resistant, and that you have to be certain that it is not being double spent. And for those kind of transactions, if the small-scale coffee buying transactions are on the Lightning Network, this will make the value of the chain itself much higher, because now you can put more transactions on the chain. So what are your thoughts on that? Is it more a connection, or can we see those two networks separately?
Yeah, I can't see them separately at all. I see them forever linked together. The fact that you need Bitcoin to open a Lightning channel, and you need a Lightning channel to close to open Bitcoin again, they're forever linked. So a lot of people are worried. They're saying, what if Lightning or whatever it is really valuable and Bitcoin goes down? And I just don't see any way that could happen. I do see the network flowing back and forth. Let's say everyone moves to, everybody moves to Lightning. The price of Lightning or whatever goes up, the price of Bitcoin goes down. People will go back to Bitcoin. They'll buy Bitcoin. They'll even use it for the normal things they used to use Bitcoin for while it's cheap. But if it becomes too popular and then too expensive, they'll go back to Lightning. So I do see it ebbing and flowing, but I never understand. People are trying to say, they're like, Lightning destroys Bitcoin. They're the same thing. So I don't see them destroying each other. We can agree to disagree on that. We'll have to wait and see. That's the only way we're going to find out, is by running this experiment. But I see them as symbiotic. I see them as interlinked. I don't see any reason why it would go down. So
good call. And absolutely, Bitcoin core, or the Bitcoin blockchain itself, can survive without Lightning. It works just fine. But Lightning Network can never function without the chain itself, because Lightning is just a transaction that is possible to be on-chain, but you just choose not to publish it yet. And so you cannot have Lightning without a secure and a censorship resistant and a decentralized main layer that you can trust, that if you need it, you can use it at any time. And that's why the uptime of Bitcoin is so important. And that's why Bitcoin has an uptime of 99.9992% since January 3rd, 2009. That's incredible. We've talked that now today is Saturday, and this means that all the banks are closed. Well, Bitcoin is not closed. Bitcoin is running. It's running nonstop.
I just saw a bank ad, actually. They were saying you can trade 24/5. I was like, what the hell is that? 24/5? I mean, and they were offering aftermarket trades. Yeah, but 24/5. It's like it used to be HP's slogan, 24/5, 352. We'll be there most of the time, not all the time, certainly not. That's insane. You can't have a market that runs all the time for 10 years consecutively with almost no downtime. That's impossible, right?
That is hilarious. And yeah, man, I mean, the banking sector, it's funny to see how inefficient it is, because if the audience doesn't know this, I actually do work at a bank. And so I get the experience of how it actually is working in a huge international bank. And it's really funny to see the inefficiencies and just so many little quirks that don't need to be there. But they are there because they have been there for the last 100 years, and the bureaucracy has just piled up on top of each other. And the bureaucracy in a bank is horrible. And that's why they only can do 9 to 5 on 5 days a week. It's just impossible for this system to get as efficient as Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is super efficient, mainly because it does not require any bureaucracy. It's just code. It just works.
The other thing about the banks is that they're always doing these pilot programs and they never release them. A friend of mine worked at a bank for about 3 years and they were coding and he had a whole team. They built an application and it sounded like they were basically building a copy of PayPal for the bank. And he built it and they built it and it was perfect and it was done. And he was like, then they just shelved it. They're like, that's not an innovation we need. And that's the position they're in. They're the 1,000-year bank. They're the 100-year bank. They've been here so long, they don't really care. And that's allowed them to sleep as credit cards aged and aged and aged. We're basically using a 1950s, 30s even technology where your private key is printed on your credit card. If I held up my credit card right now and flipped you back so you could see that other key, you could pretty much spend as much as you want. Whenever I give my credit card to someone, they can spend as much as they want on my credit card. Bitcoin is the exact opposite. When I send you Bitcoin, I sent you $10. It's over. You can't spend on my account anymore. Maybe it was supposed to be $10.01. Oh, it's no big deal. It's a penny. Can't we just add a penny? No, you can't even add a penny. My Bitcoin won't give you a penny's worth. My credit card, it'll go till it maxes out. It'll go to all the gas stations in town, buying gasoline, and you go charge it everywhere online or whatever. It's a completely different system. And that's why I think they're in trouble, because Satoshi managed to decentralize this system, give it to a bunch of computers. We always say like Prometheus giving fire to man, and they can't roll this back. They're trying to fight it with their own bank coins and Ethereums and whatever else. But still, the little engine that could, Bitcoin just keeps chugging along. And I know we quote Andreas a lot and we're talking about him and stuff, but the TCP/IP example, the backbone of the internet, the way that it bent but didn't break, the way that we couldn't do streaming video, we couldn't do picture attachments on email. We couldn't do anything. Why didn't we just get a whole new network? Because it bent and it didn't break. And these guys just kept improving it and improving it. And even now, TCP/IP is still with us.
Yes, absolutely. And you brought up credit cards, and credit cards are a they are a pull transaction. So this means, as you said, you give the other party permission to take as much money as they want. Literally, as much money as they want. In Bitcoin,
if you use your debit card, that's your checking account. That's your money. Like, that's your actual money. Credit, at least it's credit. You got a chance of getting it back, although there might be even more potential money there. But yeah, the debit cards are even creepier because that's your rent money.
Yes. And with Bitcoin, we have push transactions. So I, the user, tell you exactly how much money you receive, and you can not take anything. And this is so important. Guys, please do not use credit cards. They are flawed in every way. Not only do they provide the possibility of random people just taking all your money at any time, because remember, all those services that you use for buying something with your credit card, they store this data. They store your private key. So they can do transactions a year or 2 years after you actually have bought something with them. And if you do not realize that, and if you do not challenge that claim, well, then you are losing money. So please, never ever use credit cards. They also dox your name. Every merchant there knows where you live, what your name is, where you are born, what your mother name is, if you have any children. It's incredible. They even probably know, or they can estimate how much money you make because they can see how high your line of credit is on that credit card. So it's horribly in every shape or form. If you have to use fiat money, which I encourage you not to, but if you have to, use cash, because that is the only censorship resistant and trustless way of money that we have in the fiat system. But never, ever, ever use credit cards unless you really have to.
And while we're all kind of down right now and the price is down, it's not a good time. But next time that the price goes up, I'm going to be saying this a lot more. Everyone should pay off their credit card debt. If you have any high interest loans, maybe you took those loans to buy Bitcoin, you did well or you didn't do well or whatever. But if the price is up and you can afford to get out of debt to pay off your loans, it's not fun. I did it. You keep cashing out these beautiful Bitcoin that you love for the stupid US dollar that you don't love to pay for purchases that you did in the past. I paid off a lot of debt. They didn't even send me a toaster. There wasn't even an Amazon gift card. Thanks for paying off the debt. Go spend some more money. No, no. All I got was the good feeling that I paid back what I borrowed. And they got to jack me up with a lot of interest, and they got that good feeling of getting all that interest money. But if you can pay them off, you can stop paying that interest. And Bitcoin goes up, but it doesn't go as much up as credit card interest. They are really serious.
Yes, and this is just really bad. If you are in credit card debt, you should pay that off as fast as possible. And if you do not have the money, actually think about getting a real credit, a real long-term credit, because the interest rates there are much, 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 much lower. You can pay 14, 15, 17% on your credit card debt. That is insane. That is insane. Those banks, they get the money for free. For free. They don't even have to pay anything for it. And you have to pay them 17% per year just for the honor of doing a normal transaction and buying something. It's just flawed on every level. And what we talked about earlier, that there is this hierarchical structure in banks, as it is with many other incumbent systems, but especially with banks. And as Thomas, you said that your friend had this innovation and they worked on it for quite some time and they had a good product. But then they had to ask permission. Hey guys, so can we build this? And maybe they say yes, maybe they say no. Most likely they're going to say no. And then if you're building this, you always have to go back. Well, okay, we did this little change. Is this okay? Can we do this? Can we get the permission of actually doing our work and innovating? And you have to get the permission all the time. And then when you're actually finished, most likely your product is not going to be used at all. And this is what we call hierarchical innovation. But there is no innovation here, not at all. That's why big companies never innovate. It doesn't matter what the company is. If it is too big and if it has too many hierarchies and too many silos that do not intercommunicate, they are not going to innovate. Now, what do we have in Bitcoin? We have the complete opposite. We have no ruler. We have no leader. You do not have to ask for permission for anything. Just do it. And that is on every level. If you want to make a fork of Bitcoin, do it. If you want to dedicate your time and improve the code of Bitcoin, do it. If you want to make a YouTube channel and talk about Bitcoin, do it. If you want to start a meetup, do it. If you want to talk to your friends, do it. But do it. That's all that we can say, because that's all we can do. And nobody's going to stop you. But the beautiful thing is, we all are going to support you. And if you need any help, reach out to the people that are doing it already. And 99.999%, they are going to help you out. Why? Because we all started somewhere, and we know how difficult it is to start. And we are going to support each other no matter what. We are in this together. This is a decentralized movement, and the users, they are actually going to, well, do stuff.
Oh yeah, well, and people do reach out and they get benefit from it. Years ago, a guy reached out to me and he said, "I'd like to start a show about pot coins, focus, and I want to call it Mad Pot Coins, and I want to kind of use a similar character to your Mad Bitcoins." And he asked my permission. He didn't have to, but I appreciated it. He asked my permission, and of course, I said I'd support him, I'd help him, I'd retweet him. I had him on the World Crypto Network for a while. I gave him notes about how to improve his performance and so forth. And it was a really great thing. And we're just friends, Mad Potcoins and I. Well, fast forward a few years later, the whole Dennis Rodman thing is still blowing up with North Korea. And suddenly the media is interested not in Mad Bitcoins, but in Mad Potcoins. And what's really cool is that in this Vice article, you can go Google it, Google Mad Bitcoins, Mad Potcoins. They say Mad Potcoins, a show about potcoins based upon a popular Bitcoin show, Mad Bitcoins. So Mad Bitcoins got defined in Vice thanks to Mad Potcoins. So you might think you're never going to get anything out of this, or why are you helping all these small people? But it comes back to you. The good things come back to you. But going back to what we were talking about earlier, the companies with the banks, it might not, the software might be great, the product might be perfect, but it's not a good fit for that product line. Like I always say with who killed the electric car, the EV1 and General Motors. They had a Humvee and they had an EV1, and the EV1 didn't fit with a Humvee. It didn't fit in the category. And similar to Xerox, Xerox was a photocopying company. They pretty much invented the computer. And then the CEO said, this company will never sell a product with a mouse. He didn't like the name mouse. They didn't understand the graphical interface that they had. Then they showed it to Apple. Then they showed it to Microsoft, and both of them copied it to the point that they are the computer companies, not Xerox. It sounds insane to say that Xerox had the graphical user interface and that they had the mouse before Macintosh. That's insane. You only know that if you watch those movies or read a book about Steve Jobs or whatever. But the other thing we were talking about was Lightning Network, and I wanted to say Litecoin. The Lightning Network is symbiotically linked to Bitcoin. They're forever attached. It's different from Litecoin. Litecoin went out on its own. It's a fork. It's a copy. It's different. It's not compatible. The Lightning Network will always be compatible with Bitcoin. They'll always be interlinked. So I think there's two different directions to go, and people are trying to say that Lightning is a separate coin. And I don't see that at all. Litecoin is a separate coin. Ethereum is a separate coin. Feathercoin, any of these things. They went on their own way. They took the source code, or they even took the whole chain with like Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin Gold or any of those. But they're not the same coin, and it's not like the relationship between Lightning and Bitcoin. So.
Yeah, interesting, but I would differentiate here between the Lightning Network and the technology that makes up the Lightning Network, which are payment channels. Payment channels are actually just Bitcoin transactions off chain. So if Thomas and I get together and say, okay, we both put 1 Bitcoin into this payment channel, and we're going to make a on-chain transaction, and then just we two are going to update and sign the newest state of the transaction without publishing it every time we do a transaction. That itself is a payment channel, and it has been available in Bitcoin since version 1. You could do a payment channel on January 3rd, 2009. It was like the code was definitely not there, and it was not working well, and it was actually broken, but theoretically it was possible under some circumstances. It was not doable with heavy adversaries. And so the payment channel itself, that is tied to Bitcoin, because you actually have to put Bitcoin in that payment channel, in the specific address that you can then use with each other. But the Lightning Network is the connection of several different payment channels with each other. And the interesting thing is that the Lightning Network does not only have to rely on one currency, because the vast majority of the payment channels can be of one coin, but also other coins can make a payment channel. So for example, there can be a payment channel between Thomas and me in Bitcoin, and then there can be a payment channel between Vortex and Thomas in Litecoin. And this still together, the whole thing, those two payment channels are the Lightning Network, but the payment channels itself, they are specific for, well, the coin itself. But Thomas, I just saw that we got a nice donation from Sword for 100 Norwegian crowns. That's $12.27. Thank you very much.
That's very cool. I remember one time we got all the Scandinavian currency. It was like these kind of kroners and that kind of kroners. And then the other ones were like, I was like, where are you, Sweden? Or something like that. And they were like, oh, we switched to the euro. Something like that. Sorry, I don't remember exactly which country, but it was like Sweden, Norway, and Finland. And everybody up there was watching us. And we were like, well, why aren't you supporting us? And like, oh, we're on the euro now. But we've got a couple more stories. I wanted to show the QR code. If you'd like to donate Bitcoin to the show directly, that would be much appreciated right here. And remember, what's so great about this, and when I started the Mad Bitcoin show like 5 years ago, one of the big ideas that caught on for me immediately with Bitcoin is that I could put this graphic up, and anywhere in the world you could scan this graphic and send me $1 or whatever. And what was so amazing is, I don't know if you guys know, but YouTube does take a percentage of the tips from Super Chat. YouTube takes a percentage of the advertising revenue. YouTube's a great platform, and I want to support them. But you just got to keep that in mind. Whereas Bitcoin doesn't take any percentage of the money. If you send me $5 in Bitcoin, sure, you have to pay the fee, whatever that is. But the rest of it is just here. It's completely here. And you could be anywhere in the world, any kind of country. And that's what just turned me on so much about Bitcoin. And people are down about can't send micropayments. But look here, we got some donations yesterday. 0.005 Bitcoin, 0.00164,363, and 0.000935. And if I push the button on blockchain.info, it shows me that was around $6, $11, and $32. So you can send pretty small amounts of money still with Bitcoin if you're willing to pay the fees and depending on how your wallet works. I suppose if you're sending out a BitPay, they're going to charge you a ridiculous fee every time, but that's their choice. It's not a good choice, and it's not a very honest choice, but it's what they've chosen to do to make money for their company. I also wanted to highlight the Patreon accounts. We've got $233 a month being raised for the World Crypto Network with 28 patrons, and we're raising $526 a month with Mad Bitcoins. And Patreon emailed me about a new feature in their app, and I want to show you how it works right here. So they gave me this little Snapchatty type thing. It's called Lens. And what I can do right now is I can just go like this, and I can say, "Hello, Patreon. I'm doing Bitcoin Talk Show live right now. Can you believe it? You're behind the scenes. You can see my Mad Bitcoins hat up there in the background. No one else can see that but you." And then what I do is I push save, so I get a copy of that. Then I push upload, and it says it's scrolling, thinking, and it becomes small and it goes. And now if you're on the Mad Bitcoins Patreon, you can see that video. You could see my hat over there. It seems really cool. I'm going to try to use it more for behind the scenes videos. It's interesting. The videos disappear in 24 hours. I'm not crazy about that. I kind of like archiving and having a library of things. But maybe it excites you as a Patreon that you get access to this for 24 hours and then it goes away. But yeah, check it out on Mad Bitcoin's Patreon. If you join with like $5 a month or $2 a month or something, you can see these behind the scene videos. So pretty cool. Good job, Patreon.
Hey, yeah, that's really cool. But I'm still wondering why Patreon is behind on Bitcoin. I don't get it. It's the perfect currency for it. And especially with Lightning coming around, you could make milli Satoshi transactions per video. That is just amazing. You know, they should maybe work on integrating a Lightning app in their wallet themselves, make sure that the user owns their own keys, and then they can easily, you know, do Bitcoin transactions, do Lightning transactions, and support the videos that way. I think it's just a perfect fit to use a peer-to-peer currency to support your peer-to-peer content creator. I think it's a great fit.
Yeah, I used to hassle Patreon about taking Bitcoin years ago, and they would always say, "Oh, it's just around the corner," or "Oh, maybe next year." I think a lot of it has to do with what you said about the push-pull technology. A lot of the way that Patreon works, and I'm not giving away any secrets here, is that you put the $2 donation on your card, and then you forget about it because it's $2. And maybe you like Mad Bitcoins, or maybe you don't like Mad Bitcoins in 6 months, but you're still kind of giving them $2 a month. That's the trick of Patreon. And when people's credit cards expire, that's when I lose donations. They just don't remember that they did it. Whereas Bitcoin, they'd have to have you give them the Bitcoin, then they'd have to hold the Bitcoin, then they'd have to take it out slowly. And like Circle has said, the reason that they're launching USDC is because they want a dollar-linked currency or cryptocurrency or whatever it is, so that if you want to pay $10 a month in fees, and you want to give them $10 a month, you know, $100 worth 10 months at a time, that money will be there. They can take the fees from that account. But yeah, I do think Patreon should use it. It would be a way to differentiate themselves. I went in there, I read my messages for the first time. Apparently back in December, somebody stopped subscribing to me because Patreon was charging too much fees. And they say I should go to a website called Maker Support or something. But yeah, I don't know. If they took Bitcoin, sure, I'd go to Maker Support. They would differentiate themselves. And
Exactly.
Patreon, big office in San Francisco, big team, got to get on that Bitcoin thing, or someone will make a copy of Patreon using Bitcoin and compete with you till you're out of the market.
Yes, exactly. And Thomas, you said that yes, Bitcoin is not a pull transaction, but a push transaction. But again, that can be a really, really good strength because there is a lot of credit card fraud. And I'm sure that Patreon is suffering from a bunch of credit card fraud, and that they have to then, repay the defrauded people. This means that they have to hold back a huge chunk of their recurring payments because they know that like 1%, 5% of all the transactions are going to be fake, that they will have to repay eventually. They know for a fact that this can never happen in Bitcoin. And what they, of course, could do is to just say, well, we're going to, you can only watch the video if you give us a Lightning transaction first. And with you giving the money over the Lightning channel, the video automatically gets decrypted and you can watch it. So we don't even need to have a pull transaction from that. We can do that all with a push transaction. But yes, you maybe have to pay before you watch the video. That might be something that might be a bit annoying. But then what you could do is say, okay, you can watch the first 40% of the video. And then you have to decide, okay, is this high content? Do I want to continue? If you continue, then automatically your wallet will send the funds, which again, it is not a pull transaction. You can make automated push transactions, of course, but then you could also opt out and say, okay, no, I didn't like that video. I do not want to support it. I mean, that is not just something that that Patreon can do, but YouTube, of course, as well.
And YouTube did announce recently that they're offering a subscription program. You could subscribe to the World Crypto Network through YouTube if the World Crypto Network had over 100,000 subscribers. So subscribe to the World Crypto Network because basically YouTube doesn't think that we're valuable or important until we have 100,000 subscribers. I told you guys about 6 months ago that if we got 100,000 subscribers, we'd get a direct point of contact with YouTube. If something went wrong with our account, we could call them on the phone and say, fix it. We'd also get access to these fabled and mystical YouTube studios. Apparently in large cities like Manhattan, YouTube has a studio. And if you have 100,000 subscribers, you can go in and use the studio, I guess. I don't know. It sounded really cool. YouTube last contacted me when we broke through 10,000 subscribers, and they haven't spoken to me since. So if you want YouTube to talk to me, and if you want this show to have a subscription option, subscribe down below. Maybe go out and create a program that creates fake YouTube accounts and just subscribes them, or ask your friends to subscribe. Tell them they don't even have to watch. I don't know. Whatever it is, we need more subscribers. We need more Google searches for Bitcoin. We need more interest in Bitcoin, more buyers, all of those things. But I can tell you now, thanks to your thumbs up and for keeping this window open, we have 190 viewers. We are very close to the 200 viewer barrier. And again, the more thumbs up we get, the more viewers we get, the more likely that we get on one of those YouTube trending lists. And then people who aren't even interested in Bitcoin or aren't crazy interested, like they don't come back and watch the shows every day, they'll be like, oh, it's up 10%. I've heard of that Bitcoin. They'll check it out. And I don't have that many stories left, but I just did want to say I'm super excited for the iPhone upgrade program. I bought it last year, and instead of buying your iPhone, you pay a monthly fee for your iPhone. This way you get Apple Care and you get to trade in your phone every year. So I'm looking at trading in my phone. Right now I have an iPhone 7 Plus, and it's pretty big and I like it. I'm looking at the iPhone X, but it looks a little smaller. So I might have to wait until they release a bigger iPhone X, which of course they're talking about but haven't done yet. I'm going to be eligible to update my phone in a few days. So I don't know if I'm going to have to wait a month or whatever, but very cool program. Pay a monthly subscription instead of paying that. What do you got, Max? Link to Purism?
And well, you know, Apple, it's a company, and they are a bit shady. Yes, they do make a good product, and they make a product that is really user friendly. But as with everything, you, the user, have the choice on what you want to support. And the question is, do you want to support such a huge company that maybe it doesn't do like that many good things with its money, and maybe they could do a bit better? Or you can support a company like, for example, Purism, which is a 100% open source hardware and software manufacturer that make fantastic hardware. So they have a tablet, they have a smartphone, and they have 2 different laptops. And they are completely funded by the community. You know, they did a Kickstarter, and their software and hardware is amazing because it values your privacy, and that is really important. For example, the biggest feature that I love about this phone is that it has a kill switch for your microphone, your camera, for the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So you can physically switch off your microphone. And this means that never, ever again do you have to worry that someone hacked your phone and is now watching you through the webcam, which is really annoying. That I really don't like that. And they have that on all their products. And for example, you can also use your phone and plug it into a specific screen and keyboard, and then you can use your phone as if it were a main working station with a mouse, with a keyboard, with the screen. And again, which company do you want to support? And I just think if you are in the market for a new phone, check them out. It's really, really high quality stuff. And it is 100% open source. And you can, I think you can support that.
People were asking how much the Purism phone is. It looks like it's kind of a Kickstarter type program. And it looks like it starts around $600 for the pre-order of whatever the new version is. Yeah, that does sound very interesting, Max, but I've gotten used to them watching me through the webcam. It's more comforting now. It's more like a friend. They're just taking care of me, making sure that I'm safe. And it's interesting, you talked about the hardware switches, and people are all saying Android in the chat, and they're bagging on Apple. Here's what I love about Apple, the little software things that they fixed. Sometimes you have to turn off your Wi-Fi, right? You keep getting connected to some internet that doesn't work. You want to make sure that you use the cell phone internet. So you say Wi-Fi off. Now, this used to be a problem because normal people would forget to turn the Wi-Fi back on when they're on Wi-Fi. What did Apple do? They made the Wi-Fi off a temporary setting. It turns itself back on after a day or after a few hours. That's just great. Apple, they just take care of you. So it depends what you want from your software. Android always felt a little more beta to me, a little more buggy, a little more like Windows, where it's rough around the edges. And sure, it's an amazing tool. Windows is an amazing tool. You can get it to do anything. But Macintosh is like a specific tool. It's like a specialized video editing hammer, and it just edits video. And you don't have to know anything else. It never tells you about drivers. It never randomly crashes like Linux. But again, these are all years ago when I tried all these things. I'm sure they're much better now. But still, I just want to get in there, do my stuff. And also, I'm willing to pay the Apple Premium to get that software that works the way I want it. And when I use these other softwares, I always have ideas on how they could improve it. And when I use Apple software, I have this amazing thing where I think, how would I do this? And then it's there. System preferences, displays, boom. Difference between my computer before, I had a normal monitor and I plugged my laptop into it. So I was forced to use the horrible controls. And this is ViewSonic. This is a good monitor. They put the controls underneath the monitor. So you have to bend your neck down, push your buttons underneath there to change the brightness or the contrast. It's almost impossible. This new computer, Apple built it. It's all built into the monitor. The brightness settings is in the system preferences, in displays, and you can do it right there on the screen. There are no controls for this monitor. There are no buttons. ViewSonic could learn a lot from this Apple monitor computer thing. And then again, that's why I'm with Apple. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And Apple, they do provide a really good product. And the product is specifically for people that do not want to take care of the details themselves. Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with that. Of course not. No, you, the user, can choose whichever product you would like to have. And that is perfect. That is exactly how we want it. But you also have to know that there are alternatives. It's not just Apple. It's not just Microsoft. And maybe you could, try out Linux again. I actually do have, if I can find it now, yeah, right here. So I actually do have here a USB stick that has the Linux, the newest version of Ubuntu Linux, the installation file. So I can plug this in wherever I want and just upgrade to Linux. If a friend wants to see how it works, you can plug this in and easily show them. And honestly, Linux is really good. I really like it. For example, if you make an update, you're not stuck on like a blue screen with a rolling icon. No, you can still use your hardware just normally. It takes a bunch of resources, or not that money, but it takes resources to do the upgrade, but you can still use it all the time. And you do have full control over it. I'm not a programmer, I'm not a coder, so I sometimes do struggle with the command line interface and the terminal. Yeah, but the same with Bitcoin. It's open source, and that means that there are a bunch of people that had the problem before, and they wrote a perfect explanation on how to fix it. So yeah, maybe you have to look for it, but that's a great way to learn more. And if you're up for that, just try it out. And if you don't like it, go back to the system that you prefer. But just know that there are other alternatives.
Yeah, I'd try Linux again, but I'm just so picky. It's little things about the way the mouse moves. I can't get the sensitivity set right. There isn't enough settings. The touchpad doesn't work quite as good as I want it to. Little things won't work. Like when you close the screen on the laptop, the computer will keep running depending on the version, depending on the laptop. And then my other thing, when I did, because I actually bought it was years ago now, but when Dell announced that they were doing Linux laptops, I was like, all right, I will buy a special Dell Linux laptop. It will work perfectly with all of the Linux drivers. I'm set for life. And I installed Kubuntu because I like the KDE version of Ubuntu better than GNOME. And it's good and it ran well for a while, but every once in a while, I hate to say this, but it would shit the bed. It would drop the video driver and you would boot up into command line. And that's a point where I was so happy because I had a second computer. I had a desktop so I could look up what was wrong with my Linux computer and figure out how to fix it. I could go download the video driver and fix it so it boots again. And then I became afraid of updating because any update could cause one of these shit the bed incidents. And it just became such, like, I was spending my time learning Linux and learning the computer instead of doing applications and making videos or writing stories or whatever. So I think it's gotten a lot better. And I think if you're looking for some low cost hardware and a low cost operating system, it's there and it's a starter. And I think when you get used to it, you're set. But Max is right. This is Bitcoin Talk Show. And I think that we've talked a lot, but we would like to hear from you. So go ahead and install Skype right now. Add us on World Crypto Network, all one word. And you can call in. We've got the phone lines open. So just give us a call now and ask us anything about Bitcoin or tell us about your iPhone or your Android or tell me I'm wrong about Linux. I'm open to it. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Thomas, this is Jeff from Ohio again.
How's it going, Jeff? What do you think today about Bitcoin?
Going great. It's going great. I'm glad you opened the call line. I have a concept I want to bounce off you guys. By the way, you guys are a great team. You guys work
thank you very much.
Very well.
So much.
I appreciate Max. I haven't heard of him in the past, but he's given some insight here the past week or so on
economics. That's what the people were saying in the chat. They're like, where has Max been? How is he only joining World Crypto Network now? People are funny.
Yeah. Well, talking about where have people been, Saifedean Ammous's book that dropped out of the sky, I'm not sure if either one of you have read it, but this thing's got me intrigued. I've read it my first pass, and I usually take books that I like about 5 or 6 passes through them because you pick up little things on the way. But there was this concept that he introduced, during the discussion on the history of money and people deciding what is good money, which of course in modern days we're just told what is good money. But when people finally decide what is good money, it's usually a hard money. And in my mind, after sort of mulling this over, the fact that a large number of people have already seen Bitcoin as a hard money, we're not going to unsee that. And so all of this hype about price and change in price isn't really going to matter because there's enough base people that see it as hard. But now there's exceptions. If there's a significant change in the technology that's detrimental, which by its design is very difficult to do, that could be problematic. If there's a competitor that's superior that comes along, and it's none of these things that are out there now qualify by any stretch of the imagination. So that just is another check mark in the plus box. Every time I reevaluate why I believe Bitcoin is a good long-term hold, that's just another check. And I'm putting more check marks in the plus column. I'm putting very few in the minus column. I didn't know what you guys thought about that. I'd be interested to know what Max thought about that.
Hey Jeff, that was a great call, and thank you very much. And you're absolutely right. Hey, everyone, if you have not bought that book from Saifedean Ammous called The Bitcoin Standard, buy it today. Like exit this video immediately. Oh, you should probably watch it until the end. But as soon as we're done here, read that book and read it at least twice. And I suggest you read it even more than twice, because this book is, in my opinion, right now the best book we have in Bitcoin. And that is something really, really like proud to say, because Andreas put up like 3 amazing books, The Internet of Money 1 and 2, and Mastering Bitcoin. And those are amazing. But specifically for the economics behind Bitcoin and why the economics of Bitcoin are so important, this book is fantastic. I cannot encourage you enough to read this. Saifedean is an Austrian economist, so he studies in the tradition of libertarian economics, of free economics, of free market, and, well, freedom. And he has a great amount of knowledge in this space. And he has, read the books of Rothbard and Mises and Hayek. So I suggest to you, go to Mises.org. There is a bunch of more of that stuff. Or go to towardsliberty.com/economics, where I put in a list of all great resources regarding Austrian economics. And Jeff, to your question regarding sound money, I 100% agree with you. This is one of, if not the best attribute of Bitcoin, having a currency that cannot be printed by the government. Well, that is fantastic, and on many, many different ways. First of all, it doesn't steal purchasing power from the savers and puts them in the hand of the money producers. So this means you are no longer punished for saving for the next generation, for building capital in the long term. You are being punished right now in the fiat system for providing for your children. And that is just not the way that it should be. You should provide for your children and you should save for the future. And this is only possible with sound money and not with money that can be printed out of thin air.
Yes, and a few other concepts that he was able to get across to me through his clear thinking in this book is money is bought and sold. I never considered the fact that when you're exchanging money for a good, you're buying and selling money. And his discussion on time preference, and that answered the question for me was, how is Bitcoin going to get distributed as money over time? Well, it's just a matter of time preference. Those with a low time preference, if you need to live life and pay bills, you're just going to have to distribute Bitcoin in order to meet those needs. And those that don't need that, have a higher time preference, are going to benefit from a long-term appreciation. But that thought, it just has got me really thinking. And this past week, I've heard a lot of FUD. By the way, I think that the FUD cycle, I think we came to a crescendo here in June. I actually predicted back in February, I predicted to myself that starting about July or August, we were going to see a news cycle flip that focused primarily on Lightning. So I think if we start seeing this, that means that's a signal that, hey, things are going to switch and we're going to start seeing, I know there's people out there still predicting, there's more to this bear market, but and again, you've said it before, Max, price is the least interesting thing here. But I think that might happen. But what I've been hearing is a talk about, well, there's no floor to Bitcoin. Well, there's no floor to any money. They can say the dollar has a floor, but they're not taking into consideration the monetary inflation. And the government makes up the CPI is not really monetary inflation. That's consumer inflation. They make those statistics up. I don't care what you tell me. Inflation has not been 2.5% for the past 20 years. It just hasn't been. And if you look at CPI, it's been right around there. They're making that crap up, and it's to appease people. And, I think we've got something good here. I appreciate, Thomas, again, I told you last time, this show is getting important information out. A great edition with Max here. I have to get going, but I'm glad you let me talk for a while.
Well, thanks so much for the call, and give us a call anytime.
Thank you, Jeff. That was a really, really good call. And please call in again next time, and we can talk more about sound money. That's a fascinating topic.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I see you soon.
I agree with what Jeff said about the show here and what Max was talking about yesterday, that this is kind of like a Bitcoin call-in helpline. Anyone can call in, and if we can expand this idea, and if we can keep adding new guest hosts and new co-hosts and new time zones to our program, there will be eventually a 24-hour Bitcoin helpline. And you'll be able to watch a show like this where people call in or even call in yourself and ask your question directly. And I think that's really exciting. The caller mentioned Saifedean's book. I haven't bought it yet. I am really enjoying this Robin Williams biography, so it's going to be difficult to get me to read anything other than that. But I'm definitely thinking about pulling the trigger here. I haven't bought Andreas's speeches books yet. I almost got an autographed one of these, but there wasn't time. But I've seen a lot of these speeches. I might have to go through and mark the ones I saw live at the San Francisco Bitcoin meetup or something like that. That might be kind of fun. So I might pull the trigger on all this here. I don't know. I could get the Saifedean book on the Kindle for $11. I'm kind of mixed, which would be better, having the hardback or the Kindle. But it's probably nice to give him a couple more bucks and to get a physical thing. It's funny. There didn't used to be a bunch of books about Bitcoin. I don't know what's happened here on Amazon, but if you search for Bitcoin, there's a ton of books. I was thinking about getting this one. I don't know. It seems kind of silly. Bitcoin for Dummies. I saw they had a blockchain for dummies too. And I don't know. There's just so many. I saw like advice for trading altcoins, and there's just a ton of books now. So that's pretty cool. There didn't used to be. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, Max, and hey, Thomas. It's Ricardo from Paris.
Hey, Ricardo. How's it going? Good to hear from you again. What do you think about Bitcoin today?
I've got so many thoughts going in my head right now. It's insane. I guess I kind of look at it as Bitcoin is like the power of the people, you know, kind of like the voice and the idea of being an independent media maker, which seems to be, there seems to be this war on YouTube and people getting content just disappearing. But more so, I think that like we're all in the crossfire of a massive war, and it's just because those who have power and had money and have controlled the system for so long are realizing that their time is coming to an end, and they can no longer hand off the gauntlet or the fire to their next of kin. So that's kind of like the last hurrah. And there's just so much. I honestly believe that the price is being driven down, and really there's a lot of things that are being put into power to really oppress and to suppress information and to keep us from really using this weapon, almost, as you could think, because it's the power of money. And humans, we need this. We need an exchange, you know, to be able to exchange, you know, goods, services rendered, whatever it might be, to have our economy going. But wouldn't it be bad if the people controlled it rather than, you know, 1,000 people or a few jobs or a couple banks, you know?
Hey, Ricardo, it's great to finally hear you and to finally answer your question in person. You know, we've been chugging along in the chat for quite some time now, so it's great to have you on the show now. And you're absolutely right, man. Bitcoin is for the people and by the people, and gives the power back to the people, because that's what money is. Money is by definition the tool of the people, because you use it every day in half of every transaction. You know, the other side of the transaction is some good, but you are most likely going to pay for that good in money. So if the money you use is controlled by someone that does not like you, then this means that every second transaction or half of every transaction, well, you have to do with a good that is not good for you. That means that it's a bad. And if we give back the power to the people and make them able to choose which currency that they would like to use, to, well, have anarchy in money, which my bachelor thesis is all about. This means that we have so much more competition, and eventually the best product will win. And you are right, Bitcoin is a weapon, but it is also a tool, it's a technology, and it is neutral by design. So yes, it can be used as a weapon. Well, no, actually, I don't think Bitcoin can be used as a weapon, interesting. But regardless, it is a weapon for self-defense, because now you, the user, have the choice, the opportunity to exit the coercive fiat money system, to exit a system where you are being stolen from actively every single day, and use something else. And now someone is mowing the lawn, so I better mute it and close all the windows.
Absolutely.
It's funny because I was just talking about this morning. I saw somebody's Twitter profile here, and I don't want to throw them under the bus. They have the right to have any cool quote they want on their Twitter profile. But it says, every tool is a weapon if you hold it right. And I just thought this was a super creepy statement. And maybe it's true, maybe it's not true, but oh, what a creepy thing to say. Yeah, I don't know how people think about Bitcoin, if they think it's a weapon or not.
Well, oh man, I had a thought that was coming to mind about when you were talking, Max, about Bitcoin and the people. Absolutely, it goes back to it's like if you play somebody's game and they created the game, then you're never going to win. If we try to play their game and we pay their taxes and we bail them out and we deal with the recession or we deal with the inflation or we deal with the exchange rates, it's a completely controlled mess. And I mean, to give that much power to so few people, of course it's going to get evil. Of course people are going to be offed. Of course things are going to get thrown under the bus, and people are going to be, or even Bitcoin or something that's good is going to be, completely burned for the stake for the good of it. And we are in a war of consciousness, and Bitcoin allows people to be free of fiat, which is a conscious mindset. Now, I've lived in America and I have school loans, and I've traveled abroad and I live abroad. And for people, or to live in a country where people get schooling for free and it's top of the line schooling, it's blows my mind. And there's so much that's happening in the world of money where it's just the people are so driven down, where there's this massive gap even between the middle class and the top rich, that you're playing their game. We're playing their game. We can't win. There's just no winning. So the only way we can do is that's what I was going to say, to switch the entire system, and I believe Bitcoin, to me, in a sense of a weapon, meaning to me is a defensive weapon. That's a great way to say it, because it reminds me of Wang Chun, Kung Fu. And it's a type, if anybody knows about Wang Chun, it's a martial arts that was derived in China from Kung Fu, but was used by women for self-defense of men against their husbands and in the streets. And Wang Chun is based off of the zero line, right and center, in front of you. And if you can keep anything from going past that center point, and you can direct it, you will always be in power. So if you can have a system like Bitcoin that is its own thing and it taxes itself, or it mines itself, and it's got such powerful components to it that no one can, dominate or dictate, then why are we not using it with all the mistakes we've had for the last 20,000 years,
Great points, Ricardo. I 100% agree. And to answer your question, I would actually like to read a quote from a female pirate. Her last name, or her pseudonym, was Reprisal. And you can get that letter on pirateswithoutborders.com. And I myself classify myself as a philosophical pirate, because, pirates were actually freedom fighters. And she has a great quote in her letter, number 2 on that page, and I'm just going to read it. Pirates understand that even if they bend their knee, abandon their passions, and live a servile life, they would not be safe from the crown's aggression. We can't allow the most powerful threat to our safety to dictate how we protect ourselves. The realization had a profound impact on me. I learned that self-defense was not just a state of physical preparedness. It was a boldness and independence of mind. Self-defense is the ultimate test of a moral philosophy. It's simple, really. You own your body, so you possess the right to defend it. But the crown persists in the absurdity that letting you defend yourself is part of the problem and never part of the solution. The crown continues in their deception because it cannot tolerate any challenge to its physical dominance. And this is really what Bitcoin is all about. The government has taken away the power to defend ourselves from financial and economic warfare for the last 100 years. And that means that we were defenseless in this financial and economic war that has been going on for the last 100 years. And Bitcoin, for the first time, ever since gold, is a suitable defense weapon. We can use Bitcoin not to attack other people, but to defend ourselves from being attacked.
Yeah.
Good stuff, Max. Definitely agree with that. Thanks so much, Ricardo, for your call. Give us a call anytime.
Cheers, guys. You guys have a good day.
Thank
Hey,
you.
thank you, Ricardo, and see you hopefully on the next show.
Yeah, and you can call us now on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word. Book update. I bought all those books. You guys are a bad influence. I used to have more money than I did earlier. Now I have more books. I would say I'm far richer for it. But if you'd like to donate Bitcoin right here, I'll probably use it to buy books. So if you support my book buying habit, thank you so much.
Hey guys,
yeah,
if you want to have a high quality show and a educated host, then please donate to the World Crypto Network so that Thomas can keep up educating himself about everything and anything, not just Bitcoin related. So please donate to the World Crypto Network. It is definitely much appreciated, and thank you very much.
And your donations don't have to be monetary. If you don't have a lot of money, you can donate your time by tweeting about the links, thumbing up the shows, commenting in the chat, commenting after the shows are over, time stamping. Jeremy, shout out to Jeremy in the chat, has been doing a great job with moderation and time stamping. And Jeremy will do a nice comprehensive timestamp most of the time. But what I also want to say that if you want to join us in the timestamping, if you think there's something really good in here, all you have to do is write into the YouTube comments like 10:15, and it'll make a link to 10:15 in the video. And if you want to highlight something or if you want to discuss something, a lot of times there's different phases or sections to these videos. And without a timestamp, it can be hard to get people to that. So if you just want to comment down below, you can help us with the timestamping project and contribute like Jeremy does.
Exactly. And yes, giving money away is definitely really important for people like Thomas to survive and actually keep doing what they're doing. But it's definitely not the most important thing. No, on the contrary, money again is rather boring. Yes, he can buy books with it, but well, there are more important stuff that he cannot buy with money. For example, the timestamping. For example, just being active in the community, telling your friends about that, about the World Crypto Network, and telling people, hey, there's a nice show that you can call in and ask your questions, and doing the grassroots propaganda of actually supporting the system. This is an open source movement, and we need to have open source contributors and open source entrepreneurs, which I like to call myself, to support those open source projects. And it doesn't have to be the World Crypto Network. It can be any other project. But if you have the time, and even if you do not have the money, but if you have the time, and you all do have time, just support any open source project in the Bitcoin space that you like, and it will definitely be 100% appreciated. So thank you for everything you're doing in this economy. Thank you very much.
Well, and remember the difference between levels of media. When you're watching media like this, it's okay to hold us up to a higher standard of the mainstream media. And technically, we can do that. We can have good microphones and good cameras and really interesting soundproofing backgrounds and these kind of things. But there is a difference between us and the mainstream media. They have advertising, they have sponsors, they have people behind the camera, they have people talking to them in their headphones. There's a lot of things and a lot of that they have that we don't, but we're on a much cheaper budget. So if we were able to raise 1% or 10% of what the mainstream media is making, we would just have tons of money. We would have no idea what to do with it. We'd rent a studio, we would pay people that contribute these kind of things. And again, we would make more shows. I've always tried to make it clear, if you're donating to this show, you're donating for us to make more shows. And if you look at our history, we've made a lot of shows. So Corey was saying in the chat, we also accept type 0 blood in case there's an apocalypse. So we are stocking up on the essentials, and you can call us in right now on Bitcoin Talk Show. It's a World Crypto Network, all one word, on Skype. You can call us anywhere in the country or the world, maybe even from space. I don't know if Skype works from space, but
that would be fun to have an astronaut calling in. But that's hilarious. And actually, if you think about that, type 0 blood might be a quite useful currency because it is limited. It is rare. Not many people have it. And it is really, really useful because you can take type 0 blood for regardless of what blood type you are. So it is, number one, rare, and it is scarce because it's a three-dimensional good. But number two, it is also valuable and useful. Well, okay, I don't think that you can store your value in blood because I think that it will decay over time. I'm not a medical guy, so maybe, I don't know. Oh, next call.
Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, Thomas. It's Sean from Pasadena. How are you?
Hey, Sean. How's it going? What are you
Hi,
thinking
Sean.
about Bitcoin today? Oh, did we lose you? Connection lost. Okay, well, give us a call right back. We'll still be here.
I'm right here, Thomas.
Oh, you're here. Okay. Go ahead. We can hear you. It's okay. This is a normal thing with call-in shows. Donahue used to do live call-in shows on his talk show on television, and he was always parodied on Saturday Night Live because he was always saying, "Caller, are you there? Caller, are you there?" But Sean, it looks like we're having some audio troubles. Maybe check your Wi-Fi or something and give us a call right back. We'll try to keep these phone lines open for you. But like Max was saying, typo blood might be a good currency in the future. I always tell people that toilet paper and little whiskey bottles, that's what you want. The problem with a large whiskey bottle is if you show up to a trade and you've got a whole bunch of whiskey, I'm just going to use my guns to take that whiskey. But if you got those little airplane bottles, we can have some barter. And the same thing for toilet paper. People undervalue toilet paper in a disaster or in an apocalyptic society. These are the things you're going to miss really quick. Imagine it. Does anybody even know how toilet paper is made? How the rolls are made or the computers or anything? It must be quite a process. And I think we're gonna have a hard time doing it if everything breaks down. But you know, apocalyptic ideas are fun to think about. I want to give a shout out to Rad Vladdy for sponsoring my Bitcoin Standard book. He also says we should check out the Medium article on Schnelling points, network effects, and Lindy, the inherent properties of communication. And I did pull that up here, and I'll share the link. I'll throw it into the chat if you guys are interested. I haven't had a chance to read this article yet, so it's going to be tough for me to talk about it live on the air. I could read it out loud if you want, but it sounds like a good one. We'll have to come back to it later, though, unless, Max, are you familiar with this article?
No, unfortunately, I have not yet read it, but it will definitely be on top of my reading list right now. It really does sound interesting, and the network effects are really interesting in Bitcoin and something that you can spend a lot of time thinking about. And of course, Rap, thank you very much for donating those $20. It's very much appreciated. And what I can talk about regarding shelling is the great article by Nick Savos, one of the main contributors to Bitcoin and a great thought leader in the space. And he wrote an article called Shelling Out, the Origins of Money. And, you know, Nick he's amazing. He is a true polymath. He just knows everything. And he is a really, really smart dude. And I also encourage you to listen to the episode of the Tim Ferriss Show, which did a podcast in, I think, 2015 or 16 with Nick Szabo and Nav. So a great podcast with a lot of good insights. And I can only recommend you read, well, Shelling Out and anything other from Nick Szabo. He's great.
Yeah, I really did enjoy Nick Scabo's series about the history of money, and he talks about all the little coins that there used to be. But I'd also say that you should check out, and you can Google this right here, Mad Bitcoins History of Money. I haven't made part number 4, even though I promoted it in part number 3. But you can check it out. This is United States based. That's where my history comes from, really. And I did a Brief History of Money, Volume 1. How monetary policy was created in the Revolutionary War, part number 2 about Revolutionary War, and part number 3 about Andrew Jackson and the banks. And these were all mainly gathered from Wikipedia articles because that's where history comes from these days. But you can check that out on Google, and I'll even maybe throw the search into the chat so you can check it out. Do they think that Nick has read Oprah's book? I'm not sure which book is Oprah's book, but let me know in the chat because she does the book club and stuff. I don't know if he means Oprah's actual book, but Yeah, Nick Szabo is really impressive. I was reading about him in To Satoshi with Love yesterday, and it was funny to see, you know, the real Nick Szabo come over to like the kind of fictional Nick Szabo or whatever I was writing about. But it's very cool stuff, and we're keeping those phone lines open. You can call us right now on Skype at Bitcoin Talk Show, all one word. Skype is free. You can install it. You need a microphone, a quiet room, or you could use your cell phone, maybe a glass of water, maybe headphones, or turn your speaker down. It's always a good idea. That's the other thing they always say on talk radio shows. Listener, can you turn your speaker down? And you'll hear in the background, listener, can you turn your speaker down? Like, it's funny. But all these shows are kind of the same. So
yeah, and calling in, although it does seem quite simple, you always forget one little thing, and it's so easy to just, you know, forget turning down the speakers or forget putting in the headphones. And so it's always good to repeat that. But after all, guys, you know, we are just normal people, just like you. So don't be afraid. Just call in, ask whatever question you like. Because honestly, I have not yet heard one single stupid question in Bitcoin that you could not talk about for hours. Because really, even the most simple question that you could think, we can expand into a like 2-hour show just talking about that one single question and really digging down. So really, don't be afraid. Ask any question and every question. There is a big difference between nescience and ignorance. Nescience means just a lack of understanding because there are no information available. So for example, I am nescience in, I don't know, well, I'm nescience in space engineering. Why? Because I really didn't have the information yet to look into it. What is ignorance? Ignorance means that you have the information, but you voluntarily choose to ignore it. You just choose to leave it aside. And this means that you would have the opportunity to actually learn something, but you actively try to avoid this opportunity. So nescience is completely normal. We are nescience about a bunch of stuff because there's so much information and we just can't keep up with everything. But what's really bad, if you ignore the information and then still believe that you are knowledgeable and do your decisions based on those ignored facts. And that is really, really scary. So don't be ignorant, but really be nescient and be proud enough to ask questions and ask good questions. That's even more fun.
all right, and we are going to try to keep this show open for a little bit longer, but I am looking over at To Satoshi with Love, thinking about doing a reading. Hello, caller, you're live on the World Crypto Network. Oh, did we lose you? Oh, it says call ended. Okay. A lot of things are blinking at me now. Oh, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. It's Jose Ortega. Nice to meet you guys.
Welcome aboard, Jose. What's on your mind about Bitcoin today, or just want to comment on anything we've been discussing?
Yeah, Bitcoin's always on my mind. But yeah, actually, I do have something I would like to discuss. I was wondering if maybe you guys had a little insight on this. For whatever reason, whenever Bitcoin goes down to like around 5,800 or like somewhere low like that, the dollar to Satoshi ratio actually increases. And so right now, as I'm looking at the price of Bitcoin go up to 64, I'm looking at the Satoshi ratio actually drop. I mean, I don't know if I can hear you guys. This is the first time I use Skype. I can like forever. I don't know if you can hear me or
it's working good. You said when it reaches 5,800, it seems to drop, or what were you saying? Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I was talking about this on my own YouTube channel a few days ago, and when the drop went when we were at 6,100 and we dropped all the way to 58, for whatever reason, we just usually got more Satoshi per dollar. It was somewhere like around 17,800 Satoshi per dollar. So and today, obviously, we see Bitcoin is at 6,400. So I'm thinking to myself, well, you would obviously get more Satoshi, right? That's the obvious conclusion. But when you look at it, we're back down to like 15,000 Satoshi. I'm trying to find that that website that you always use, bitsatoshi.com.
Yes. And
yep, it's BTC-Satoshi.com. Here it is right here.
Jose, quick question. What is your YouTube channel called?
as to why that would be.
Well, I think that the price of Bitcoin goes up, so you're getting less Satoshis. The price of Bitcoin goes down, you would get more Satoshis. So it's just the exchange rate. So whereas you would pay $6,400 one day, you would pay $6,100 one day, but both days you would get one Bitcoin, which is what, Max, like 1 million or 10 million Satoshis, something like that.
100 million Satoshis are one Bitcoin. And so if you go to like one exchange and you see the price, which is currently $6,300, this means that one Bitcoin equals or you can exchange one Bitcoin for $6,300. And this means that you can get one Satoshi, which is 100, this means that 100 million Satoshis are together $6,350.
Well, I did the math, and so that's the weird part. So like I actually did the math, and so like I got the actual price of Bitcoin at the moment, and then I multiplied it by the Satoshi ratio, and you actually got more Satoshi. It doesn't come out to one even Bitcoin.
It probably just depends where the number is coming from. This might be using an average of multiple exchanges, or it might not perfectly line up to an exchange. Everything's from CoinDesk.
Yeah.
This website might be out of date or something. I mean, I basically, just to make sure we have all the basics right here, when we say Satoshi, we're basically talking about 8 digits down. So there would be 7 zeros and a 1. So it's just like a micro unit of Bitcoin. And I'm agreeing with you that the math should add up perfectly. You should get the same amount if you buy Bitcoin, or if you look at this page in Satoshis. There might just be a little drift. It does look like they have CoinDesk here, or they have Bitcoin average. I know that Bitcoin average is an average of several exchanges. So you might look at this price. You might not be able to get this price anywhere in town. But if you averaged all the exchanges together, you would get this price. So I imagine it's just a variance. How much was it off by? Was it a lot?
No, it wasn't off by a lot. It was off by actually like it came out to like pennies. I'm not a mathematician by any means, but it was off by pennies. But I mean, I like to talk a lot about like what's going on with finance and what's going on with the world, and the dollar and the dollar tanking and all these things. And so to me, my fucking weird theory was that since a US dollar, since Bitcoin is pegged to the US dollar, and we're looking at the whole unit of Bitcoin, we're not really seeing much movement per se. But when you start breaking it down to Satoshis, millimeters, we start looking at it through a microscope, that's when you really get to see, I guess, more manipulation, or get to really see like the breakdown of the dollar. Like, so for example, when as we're seeing Bitcoin crash, not today, but as all these other days, as we're seeing Bitcoin, fall in price, to me, like what I keep saying is that, Bitcoin is not losing any price at all. Bitcoin is not losing anything. It's what we're witnessing is the actual fall of the dollar. And we're just watching the dollar like fall in price, just like we're watching with gold and silver. It's the same thing. I put Bitcoin up there with gold and silver. It's wealth and money.
Well, exactly. and definitely the secret part of this website is that really we want to see $1 equal 1 Satoshi. This is a countdown. It hasn't been so great lately. When I started covering this website, it was around 22,000 Satoshis for $1. At its lowest point, I think we went a little bit under 5,000 Satoshis $1, and now you can get almost 3 times as much for that. So it's just a different way of looking at it. But I do think that we are watching the dollar collapse against Bitcoin. Yes. When Bitcoin goes up, or when it, over a long timeline, if you look at it back, 5 years to now, the dollar keeps going down. And as you know, they can print more dollars. And there's this interesting effect that may or may not happen where, let's say that they print a whole bunch of money and they use that money to buy Bitcoin. Well, the price of Bitcoin is going to go up. So the next time they print a whole bunch of money and buy Bitcoin, they're going to get less Bitcoin. And this could be a fatal problem for the inflation system. If they really start cranking up that money, Bitcoin just gets more expensive. And eventually, that's why, you know, Mad Bitcoins predicted the price of Bitcoin will be infinity. That we'll flip this around and we'll start measuring the world's assets in Bitcoin rather than measuring the world's assets in dollars. So that would be a complete flip.
Yeah, exactly, Thomas. You bring up a good point that money itself is a measurement tool. You measure time preference and you measure, well, interest rates, basically. And you need that money, and you need a sound money that does not change in order to measure how you are going to enact in the economy. Just imagine building a house with a yardstick, but every time you lay a brick, the yardstick changes. It's either a bit longer or a bit shorter. You're not going to build a good house with that. And I think it was Jeff, the first caller, who brought that up, that because we had sound money for a long time, because we had fiat money for a long time, this means that the yardstick has changed over the last 100 years all over the place. And right now, we have no idea what the true price of anything is because we do not have a good yardstick to measure it. So, Jose, you're absolutely 100% right that because the dollar is such a shitty currency and because the yardstick is changing all the time, we have no idea what the true price of anything is right now. And that's why Bitcoin is so important, because it is a sound money that gives us, again, the measure stick, the yardstick to measure what we are going to do. But Jose, one question, what is your YouTube channel? What is it called? And where can people find you?
Yeah, it's joseartega.com. Hold on. I'll type it in for you guys. But anyway, that's my name, and you can go directly to my YouTube channel by just clicking on that link there, I think. Well, yeah, I can provide a link, but yeah, it's Jose Ortega on YouTube and joseartega.com. I'm not a huge YouTube channel, but yeah, like I love talking about all this stuff in the sense that, like, you know, I do think that they're obviously we know that they're manipulating the price of everything and every commodity, and there's no real price discovery anymore. And I agree with you guys. You know, like I do think that Bitcoin will be the currency sooner than later, and I think that the dollar is going to crash by. We're already watching. Obviously, we're witnessing the crash of the dollar, and a lot of people want, you know, not a lot of people, but like the powers that be, they want to have control, and so they want to, you know, probably make the yuan the next currency. But like honestly, like I think the way, you know, things are going to happen is that, you know, the whole economy is going to crash. Obviously, the dollar is a reserve currency, and as everyone's trying to pick up the pieces, I think people are just going to gravitate naturally towards Bitcoin. And sure, you know, the yuan could be the reserve currency, but it might be the last reserve currency before we actually move on to Bitcoin being the actual reserve currency. And then from there, you know, there could be a bunch of currencies, you know, like every country could have their own currency again. We'll have a bunch of tokens, and, you know, we're going to start on that path. But, you know, the dollar has to die first before, you know, everyone adopts Bitcoin. And again, we already know the only time that people are going to adopt Bitcoin is just like when we look at Venezuela, we look at any of these situations where there's a lot of economic turmoil and people just adopt it and they figure it out. Like you see mom and grandma and like everyone just figuring out Bitcoin because, well, I mean, they have no other choices. Either that or they starve. And again, when I saw the whole thing with Facebook wanting to buy Coinbase, listen, man, and I saw and that actually came out of The Economist, I think, magazine or something like that. That's where, you know, the actual quote or comment came from. So to me, as soon as I read that, I was just like, man, forget it. This to me, I look at it like a done deal. I don't know, you know, I don't like saying that, but it's almost like a done deal, and it all makes sense because remember, Facebook is like a major door, a major, you know, opening for, like, again, you know, just the average user, like mom and grandma, and like anyone that will never get into cryptocurrency. But if all of a sudden we have like a financial crisis, a currency crisis, a dollar crisis, the whole thing, and but everybody does have Facebook, and all of a sudden Facebook is like, hey, look, you know, you guys can trade in your shitty fiat, you know, for these, you know, coins called Bitcoins, and look, we're providing the whole, you know, easy way and how to do it and how to get on board and how to, I mean, forget it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, before you know it, everyone's going to be on the Bitcoin train. Just like before you know it, like everyone had a flip phone, and then like overnight, everybody had a smartphone. And it's just, you know, that's the way things are, I think, you know.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk more about this Facebook Coinbase issue. Max and I were talking about it a little bit before the show. But first, I want to agree with you on currencies. I do think the yuan is positioning to try to take out the dollar. But what's really important here is, do they sell oil in yuan? can we get them to sell oil in Bitcoins? And that all these people, these bankers, these oil manufacturers, these big businesses, none of them trust each other. They're all in these interlocking business relationships, and they have contracts and they have lawyers, and there's just no trust. So one of them will betray the other ones. And that's what we saw before in political history. Iraq tried to sell oil in euros. Venezuela, you mentioned, other countries that have oil that are looking to get off of the petrodollar have had disastrous effects, right? But China is much bigger than all that, Russia as well. So it would be very interesting to watch who's selling oil in dollars, and if we can get somebody to sell oil or even gasoline. Gas stations should accept Bitcoin if they could sell gasoline in Bitcoin too. But to go back to this Facebook Coinbase thing, I thought about it overnight, and what I came to is this is a really smart move for Facebook. If you look at Amazon's development, and if we say there's pretty much 3 or 4 companies in the world, there's Google, Amazon, Facebook, maybe Apple, right? That's about it for me. Amazon has rumored and talked about becoming a bank. And what Amazon's thinking there is you spend most of your money here anyway. Why not let us hold your money? Then it's even easier for you to spend your money. And people trust Amazon. They're getting their food from Whole Foods now. They're getting their food delivered through Amazon. There's a lot of trust there. Just in the same way for Facebook, why not become a bank? How is Facebook going to compete with Amazon if Amazon's a bank, if Amazon has healthcare, as they recently bought a pharmacy company, causing the other pharmacy stocks to go down 10% in a single day? And that's 10% on the stock market, not on Bitcoin. That's like a 40% move in Bitcoin. So I think we're looking at a world where Amazon, Google, Facebook all become banks. Maybe they all become healthcare companies. I think they're going to go after everything. I think complete vertical integration. And then we're going to have 2 or 3 of these vertically integrated silos fighting against each other, winner take all, or in big business fashion, big mergers take all. So I don't know. I think it's much more interesting than I thought yesterday. But I want to get Max's comments, and then we'll go back to you, Jose, to get more of your thoughts.
Okay.
Well, Thomas, it's interesting to think about why those huge conglomerates, why those huge companies that all of a sudden own all the business in a huge variety of different fields, how did they get into existence? And I believe that a big reason why they are still functional is because of the wrong fiat system, because they are a huge company and they can push the regulation, they can lobby for a regulation that is friendly for them. And this means, of course, increasing the money supply so that the huge companies can take on even more debt to buy even more real assets in the economy. And with that way, just keep on growing and growing and growing. And the bigger the company gets, the more reputable it becomes, and the more easier it is for that company to get a loan. Especially in the fiat money, when creating a loan always creates new money. And you see with Amazon, they have not made profit in over 25 years, or 25 years. That is unacceptable. That is not good. That is really not good. Profits are really important in the economy, because only when you make profits, you know that you're doing a good thing and that the producer or the customer is actually happy with what you are doing. And Amazon can only survive because they can refinance themselves over and over and over and over again on the markets. Well, this is no longer possible with a sound money such as Bitcoin, because you no longer can print Bitcoin out of nothing. And now you actually have to work for your capital, and you have to make a profit to be available there for the long term. So it's interesting. Yes, we have nowadays really, really many of those huge conglomerates because we didn't have a good money for the last 100 years. But now with Bitcoin just around the corner, and with a sound money and a true money just around the corner, hey, maybe those big conglomerates no longer can finance themselves just out of, inflated money. What are your thoughts on saying that?
And that's another interesting idea, that Amazon or Facebook could give out loans. I don't know if people would like Amazon so much if they were in debt to them. But let's go to Jose for some more comments. Go ahead, Jose.
Yeah. Actually, like I love that you guys bring up these points. Well, so let me throw a little monkey wrench into there. So for example, Amazon, like it's funny you bring that up. Yeah, they have not been making a profit in like forever, because what they do is they literally get all their profits, all the money, and they put into R&D. and they put it into research and development. And so that's all they're doing with all their money, all their profits. And so the reason they do that is because they know that the financial system is broken. They know that they cannot ever, they're too big to fail. They can't go bankrupt. They can just borrow and borrow and borrow. And so to me, the way I'm looking at it is like, they're uber crazy smart, and they're just building a system, obviously, for free, because they're allowed to, because they're using the fiat, they're using that whole thing. And so they are, what I think is going to happen with Amazon is they're going to transition into creating their own token. They're going to have an Amazon token in their own currency. They're going to be, just like we, mine Bitcoin and we have our own, okay. So they're going to do the same thing. And I think in the future, everything is going to be tokenized. Now, when it comes to Facebook actually do turn a profit. They actually, whatever, they make money. But the thing is that when you look at, what they're, what they do to make money is that they steal people's data. I mean, again, let me rephrase it. They don't steal anyone's data. We willingly give it to them for free. And so as we're moving into this new, world where now all of us understand how important our data is, and we have projects like, the basic attention token and other things like that, in which they're offering to pay us for our data. I mean, Facebook already sees the writing on the wall. And so like that is their whole model for making money. So if they don't adopt, like if they don't buy out Coinbase and then they become Coinbase, then, I mean, they don't have a model to be here in the future. They just don't, you know what I mean? And so like, that's what I see with Facebook. They're just trying to, like, for example, like if you guys know anything about Nintendo, 100 years ago, Nintendo was just a company that made cards, like playing cards.
Playing cards, yeah.
Look at Nintendo today. So, and then, there's a million corporations just like that and stories like that. And what I do think is that, the financial system is broken. The government literally has their hands in all these corporations and giant entities. And sure, some of these entities are willingly to work with the government, but I think a lot of these entities, don't want to work with the government, and they are, desperately waiting for the day in which they themselves can also break off from that. And again, these are the ones that are going to survive. You know what I mean? Like, and the ones that provide an actual service, an actual product, an actual something that's going to help the people and help circumvent the whole thing. Otherwise, if they don't do it, then we will build it. And that's the thing, I mean, it's going to be one or the other. And, then it's not, that's the way I see it. I think that everything is just still too crazy early on. And right now, like, there's still humongous disconnect in like how, the financial system works and how, like what the average person knows about these things. And so, the reality is if like how things have changed recently with, what Trump has done and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like pretty much up until a year ago, you can literally have a corporation lose money. These are the shell corporations, okay? So anyway, you have a corporation, or a company or a small business, and at the end of the year, if you lose money and you do your taxes and let the government know, hey, listen, I was, negative $100,000 at the end of the year. So what the government does is they actually say, oh, okay, no worries. You don't have to pay taxes. Here, just fill this paper out, whatever, and we'll actually give you money. And so that's the thing. That's why when like, like the whole saying is like the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. So that's why when like you see like a small business owner doing everything correctly, everything right, they're paying their taxes, do whatever, and all of a sudden at the end of the year, they have to pay taxes. They're in the negative. They probably have to close down, and the government has no safety net for them. You know what I mean? And so like that's what like the whole system is just, beyond messed up. You know what I mean? So like cryptocurrencies are like literally building a whole new, we have to build a whole new infrastructure with the whole cryptocurrency thing. At the end of the day, it's really just Bitcoin. And I don't know, I think everything else is kind of like a shitcoin until proven otherwise. And I mean, look, I was a believer in EOS, and look at EOS now, and so on and so forth. I mean, the other day someone was talking on my channel about, I forgot which one, but the guy from Alibaba, he was like really down with, I don't know which one it was. I want to say Cardano or one of these. And again, I mean, like they're building the right infrastructure, so like Alibaba, he's thinking ahead, and like, he's thinking of, already integrating a structure in order for, for people to use cryptocurrencies and start circumventing the system, and those are the right, moves, I think, because it's not just about necessarily like saying, Amazon can't just say, hey, we're going to accept Bitcoin, because then the government's going to be like, oh, okay, no problem, we're going to start taxing everybody that that purchase things with Bitcoin. And as we already know, it's an immutable ledger, whatever. They can figure it out. They know where the money's coming from. And so that's the thing. I think that we're still way too early on the space, but not too early. You know what I mean? Like it's how about this? I'll end it with this. I think that by the end of the year, we're gonna have Bitcoin at 100K, and I think we're gonna get to 100K because we're gonna see such a massive collapse. Coming in again anywhere from October to December, or it could be Monday. Who knows? But in the next few months, the collapse is gonna be so great that we're gonna see the hyperinflation, and we're gonna see Bitcoin to 100K. And it might sound insane and crazy, but like last year at this exact time, I was telling my friends, hey, we're going to get to 10K by the end of the year. And all my friends are like, bro, you're fucking crazy, bro. Get off that Bitcoin shit. You're nuts. What the hell are you talking about? And sure enough, we didn't get to 10K. We got to 20K. All right. And then before we even got to 20K, as we were approaching 10K and past 10K, everyone was like, hey, bro, so tell me more about that Bitcoin thing. Tell me more about this. And, people were buying at the highs and the whole euphoria. But, even though, like the whole year has passed, look where we are now. It's not like my friends don't think I'm crazy anymore. They might not, they might have shied away from the space for obvious reasons, but they don't think I'm that crazy. And the minute that this starts becoming mainstream again and people start using it and whatever, that whole thing starts taking hold again, yeah, for sure. I really do think that we're going to get to 100K because it's a worldwide problem. Remember, when the economy tanks this time, it's the dollar that's tanking. The dollar is the reserve currency, and when that whole fucking thing tanks, there's like how you were like, I know I talk a lot, but the last thing, when you were talking about China and the oil and that whole thing, listen, China already has the petro yuan, and the petro yuan is backed by gold, okay? And they are already purchasing gold with these things, okay? The whole world is already circumventing the petrodollar. The petrodollar like barely exists anymore. All these countries are aligning themselves with Russia, with China, and again, because it's like they were slaves to the United States of America, but now the new slave master is China. And so they literally have a choice. It's like, well, okay, you're going to go with a dying empire, or do you want to come with the new empire? And that's it. Like, for example, like Turkey has the ability to like, hey, to tell the United States, hey, give me my gold back. But like, let's say like, I don't know, like the Philippines or whatever, some other tiny nation, they don't have that ability, but they do have the ability to tell China, hey, China, we have all these dollars. Can we trade these dollars for yuan? And, China's like, yeah, of course, no problem. We got this. And then they get those dollars and then they send them over here. And yeah, I mean, that's where we're seeing like all this inflation and things are getting out of hand, because every single nation in the country right now, in the world right now, is literally getting rid of their dollars, and they're throwing them back at the United States. And we, as the United States, have no other choice but to accept these dollars. Because the minute that we don't accept these dollars, that's literally telling the whole world, hey, these dollars aren't worth anything. And the minute that happens, the whole thing just collapses, like a house of cards. And yeah, we're living in interesting times where, the wind is blowing harder, and this house of cards, cannot, withstand these winds anymore. So anyways, I'll end it there.
All right. Well, thanks, Jose. That's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to unpack there. I wanted to start by saying, when you said 10K and 20K, I've been reading my little novel thing that I wrote 2 years ago. And there's a joke in there where Satoshi says, oh, what's Bitcoin now? 10K, 20K? And the guy says to him, 700. And then Satoshi says, oh, 700K. That's very nice. And it's funny because I was joking about 10K and 20K then, but now a few years later, we've seen it. We've seen it with our own eyes. So I think that's a super interesting thing. I also like what you said about governments and corporations becoming governments. It reminds me a lot of the book Snow Crash, where instead of you could still work for the US government and you would be controlled and a part of them, but you could also work for Kentucky Fried Chicken. And you would live at Kentucky Fried Chicken, and they would give you Kentucky Fried Chicken health insurance and all of these things. And that's what I think we're starting to see with Amazon and Facebook, is that the only way for them to compete is for them to build alternative forms of government. where they can handle all of your needs. And what we're kind of building with Bitcoin is an open source alternative form of government. And that means it's going to be slower and that they're going to race ahead. So what you said about tokens and Amazon having their own token, I think that's something that might happen. But I think that it's going to go up and go down. I think that this idea right now, a lot of people are saying that because of computers, because of artificial intelligence or the efficiency of markets, that they could have this world with, let's say, 500,000 different tokens. And if you want to buy something on Amazon, you have to trade your tokens from Google for like 50 different other tokens in between before you get to Amazon tokens before you make your purchase. Previously, it's been impossible to have an efficient market with that many inputs and that many things. Maybe it's possible on the computer. I don't know. I kind of see it as Amazon, Facebook. They'll all have their own tokens. Then they'll all realize that Bitcoin is better. And that although they have to share Bitcoin, and although they don't get to print Bitcoin, and they love to print their own tokens. That's the most exciting thing when somebody says, you have the power to print money. Oh boy, how much can I print? How often can I print it? And they can't do that with Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't let anybody who joins print the money. So I think there's a lot to unpack there. What do you think, Max? Let's get Max's thoughts, and then we'll go back to Jose again.
Well, it's a really good comment, but I think we have to be careful with how we define government, because as I define government, and of course, if you have another definition, please share it. But how I define government is the forceful rulership over the minority, and that is, I think, a rather broad description, and this implies anything. This implies a king. This implies a democratic government. This implies a dictatorship government, or a fascist government, or a socialist or communist government. As soon as someone else is strategically and recurringly violating the private property of the individual, then that is government. Well, but it's interesting. Yes, right now, the government, the American government, is forcing everybody to use the dollar, at least to pay back taxes and to pay back debt. But I think with the advent of competition, of anarchy in money, the government no longer can force the people to use this one currency because there are other alternatives, and there are better alternatives. And this means now the government currency has to compete with the other free currencies. And yes, for example, Facebook could launch their own token. They could, but they have to compete with all the other currencies. And there are many good currencies. Gold is one, Bitcoin is the other. And the question is, can you provide a better service to the consumer, to the user of the money, to every person and every company? Well, it depends. I mean, gold is really good, and Bitcoin might be even better. So we do now have competition in money. But the interesting thing that Austrian economics teaches you is that although there is a bunch of competition and there are many alternatives, one currency will crystallize as being the most commonly used. You could see like that one currency will provide 80% of the economic transaction and the store of value and the unit of account. And the bunch of all the other currencies will make up the 20%. So maybe we have a Pareto 80-20 principle also in money. We don't know it because we never had true competition in money. So this is really interesting. But I think that now that maybe the Chinese yuan are trying to be the monopoly currency, the global, the one world currency, the new world movement and all that stuff, they can try to do it. The question is, can they outcompete the other free currencies? And I don't think that they can.
And I do have a slightly different definition of government, and this might not be politically accurate or whatever. I'm not saying from philosophy, but I think of it more as a framework where we can work together, and that there's certain agreements that we've made. We don't like people shooting other people. We don't like people taking other people's stuff. We don't like old people dying and being poor, all these things. But what Wikipedia defines the government as is they say a government is the system or group of people governing an organized community, often a state. A government is like a clan with a purpose to govern the whole family or whole nation with powers of financial, military, and civil laws. The main purpose of a government is to seek the welfare of the citizens and to fulfill their need for the betterment of the nation. And I think of government as something where we could all work together to build a dam, like Hoover Dam. No one can do it on their own, but it benefits everyone because now Hoover Dam produces hydroelectric power, and that powers Las Vegas, where I live. So in that way, we work together. No single company owns Hoover Dam because it's such a big project. So government can help us facilitate these big projects. But I mean, it's much more political, and there's different sides to this. So we'll go back
to Thomas, quick counter question then. With your definition that a government is just a collective of people coming together, what is then a company? Because what I think the definition that you gave is a good definition for a company. And if people come together voluntarily and everyone is there on their own accord and not being forced, then this is, in my opinion, not a government, but a company or a organization or a group or whatever you want to call it. But as soon as the people are forced to partake in this structure, then it becomes a government.
What if I told you guys? What if I told you guys that the lines are blurred right now, and the United States of America isn't a country, but in fact, it's the largest corporation in existence?
And that's pretty much where I am, Jose. I'm in this snow crash idea where I have a hard time seeing a difference between the governments or the corporations, except like Max is saying, the government at this point has the powers of force, coercion. If you're born into that country, in a lot of ways, they give you a social security number, you produce value for the gross national product of your company, and you're owned by that company or government. So yeah,
that's the United States of America. That's literally the United States of America, and even more so today, because as you guys know, the lobbyists for these corporations that are stationed within our borders are the ones that tell our own government what to do, and that's assuming that, you know, the central banks aren't telling them already what to do. But look, the way I'm looking at Bitcoin and the whole currency thing is more like this. I think that Bitcoin will become the reserve currency. And just like the US dollar is a reserve currency today, and how every single country has their own currency and it's all pegged to the dollar. Well, what I think is going to happen is that Bitcoin will be the reserve currency, and then every other country will either have their own token, their own currency, and on top of that, all these corporations will have their own tokens and currency. So, for example, what I think is going to happen is that, let's say you're at Amazon and you have accumulated 100 Amazon tokens. And so, you know, you only made one purchase at Amazon and you never want to use those tokens ever again, but you go to Target all the time. And so, you know, we're already fully aware of, like, when we go to any one of these stores that we get like these points and prizes and all this shit. Okay, so imagine now all of a sudden that you get to go to Target and use your 100 Amazon points at Target. And when you get to Target, you know, Target will be like, yeah, no problem. You got 100 fucking Amazon tokens. We'll buy them off you. And in fact, you know, what you'll do is that you'll go to a decentralized exchange, and you'll be able to exchange your Amazon tokens for Target tokens, because guess what? There's going to be somebody else out there in the netherworld, whatever, that has 100, you know, Target tokens, and they want, you know, and they don't want them, but they want 100 Amazon tokens. And then there'll be some sort of exchange rate, and you'll be able to exchange it just like you do, you know, Bitcoin for Litecoin right now or whatever. And then that's it. Everyone will go on their way. And on top of that, you know, companies like, you know, Target, Walmart, the grocery store, doesn't matter. Now everybody can become tokenized, and now everybody can, you know, can give you these tokens, and you can exchange them, and they'll be even more valuable, as opposed to now where if you get Target points or Target, you know, tokens, you can't exchange them, you can't use them anywhere else, and if you don't use them in a certain amount of time, you lose them. And so now you see that there's incentive on both the corporation to issue their own token and keep it as, you know, a certain value, not overinflated, et cetera, et cetera. And now there's, you know, now the actual user will have, you know, incentive to whatever, participate in the system. And I think that's where we're heading, and that's where we're going.
Interesting counterpoint. Sorry, Jose. Part of what the state provides is that, you know, the U.S. government's going to be there. If you were holding Toys R Us coin, you would have gotten wrecked lately, right? Because Toys R Us went out of business, and there's no more Toys R Us coin. What
happened to Toys R Us? You know, again, you know, look, what happened with Toys R Us was the equivalent of, like, let's say that you have a business and you owe the mafia some money. And so when you can't pay the mafia, listen, the mafia is not going to break your legs. The mafia is just going to be like, all right, you got insurance on this? No problem. All right, don't come here tomorrow night. They burn the thing to the ground, and then they collect the insurance money, and then you don't have your business, but they got their money. And that's literally what happened with Toys R Us. I mean,
I agree. Yeah, it was Bain Capital and Romney and them, and it really was, like you're saying, just like Goodfellas. They buy the restaurant, they run it into the ground as much as they can, and then they burn it down for the insurance money. But if you were holding Toys R Us coins, and for people that were holding gift cards at Toys R Us, they don't honor them anymore, and they never had an exchange over to get your fiat out. So a tokenized world could be exciting, like you're saying, but it could also be terrifying. If you hold tokens at the local Mexican fast food restaurant and they go out of business next week, no more food for you, no more meals. So
good point, but we have to.
Sure, like I agree with you because I've had other people like discuss this with me, but I think that in the future, again, just like Max, from Max Kaiser has a Max coin, I think that Thomas Hunt is going to have the Thomas coin. I think I'm going to have my own coin, and we're all going to have an intrinsic value, and we're just, we really can't see it right now because, we're so far ahead. I mean, far behind, you know what I mean? This is so far ahead in the future that we have to like think these things out, but I really do think that I think it could work. I really do think it could work. And yeah, these are the risks of being in the future, but I don't know. I think it'll be worth it.
Yeah, good points.
While I don't have my own coin yet, I do have my reputation and what I do with it. And in a lot of ways, that is like my coin. But go ahead, Max.
Well, their money is not just one thing, but it has different jobs to do. And the jobs are being a medium of exchange, a store of value, and a unit of account. Well, there is a natural tendency towards one money in the entire market, but there can be several different monies that fulfill only one specific attribute. So for example, what you guys are talking about, that you use your Toys R Us coin to buy a Toys R Us, and then you use your Amazon coin or token to buy at Amazon, you only use those tokens as a medium of exchange. And this means that you do not care what the value is right now and what the value is going to be in the future. You just care, okay, how much can I get right now with this token, with this money? And so for the medium of exchange, you do not need to have a stable currency. You do not need to have a sound money. You just need to have something that is easily transactable. And what we have with Bitcoin now, with all the cryptocurrencies that it spawned, is that we can make a token that is really, really useful as a medium of exchange. But are those separate tokens also useful as a unit of account and a store of value? Well, do you want to store your value in Toys R Us tokens? No, obviously you do not, because you want to store your value in a politically neutral currency that cannot change, that can not just be coerced by some centralized party. You want to have a decentralized, a censorship-resistant, and a flat hierarchy or even no hierarchy currency. Bitcoin, therefore, is a great store of value because it is unchangeable. Like gold atoms are unchangeable, the Bitcoin protocol is almost unchangeable. And therefore, I don't think that we will see a widespread of store of values with all those shitcoins, but rather people will store their value and measure their capital in a sound money such as Bitcoin. But of course, they can use tokens as transactions. And then the last important aspect of the money is the unit of account. And here, 100%, there tends to be only one money being used as a unit of account. Why? What happened in a barter economy is that, for example, if Thomas is selling a loaf of bread and Jose is selling a pair of shoes and I am selling, a soccer ball. And this means that Thomas has to now calculate his price of a loaf of bread, both denominated in the pair of shoes and in the number of footballs. And we all have to now calculate our prices, not just in one good, but in all the goods in the economy. And the more people are in the economy, the more goods are being transacted, which means the more prices we have to denominate. And this is really, really difficult. It costs a lot, and it destroys the possibility of actually, organizing deep production stages. So if we all have to calculate prices in different goods, then it's impossible to build a huge factory farm that produces highly specialized robots, because it's almost impossible to make long-term calculations with so many monies. So absolutely, we will use only one unit of account in the long run, or at least there's a tendency towards that. And what yardstick are we going to use as a unit of account? Well, the yardstick that doesn't change, which is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is even rarer than gold. Gold is increasing in its money supply by roughly 2% per year. Bitcoin will really, really soon stop to increase in its money supply percentage-wise. It's an exponential drop. So the yardstick in gold is still kind of changing. The yardstick in fiat money is like fluctuating wildly, and the yardstick in Bitcoin is set in stone. And it almost doesn't change at all. So I think that Bitcoin's main use case is the unit of account and the store of value. Which currency you're going to use in your day-to-day transactions depends entirely on you. And there we can have market differentiation, but not as much in unit of account and store of value function.
Yeah, like I agree with you, Max. I mean, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. What's going to happen with Bitcoin is that Bitcoin, again, will be the US dollar, as we have it today. It will be, look, how about this? You kept saying money and money and monies and monies. The thing is that there's a difference between money and currency. So for example, gold is money and currency, but it's really money. And what is money? It's where you hold your wealth. It's a measure of wealth. So same as Bitcoin. Bitcoin is money and currency, but really what Bitcoin really is a retainer of wealth. Okay. So, with that being said, all these other things, whether it's a target tokens, whether it'll be, another fiat currency, whatever, all these other things, they would just only be currencies, and they were all going to, they're all going to be interacting. Because, like, for example, it's just like if you're in Canada and you visit Mexico, and then you visit Uruguay, and then you visit, the Eurozone, you have all these different currencies. It's the same exact thing. So that's what I think is going to happen. So what we need is Bitcoin as the measure of wealth. Just like, look, Bitcoin will be gold, just like when we've had the fiat currency situation, not now, but like how we've always had it, where whenever they issue a new fiat, it's always backed in gold. It's the same thing. It's the same exact thing. So that's the way I'm looking at it. And then, we are the ones that are going to give these things value. We're, as we transact in them, as we use them, as whatever. So for example, yes, someone hypothetically could, stack up 100,000 Toys R Us tokens. But again, that's like, betting $100,000 on this horse that horse is going to win. Sure. If that horse wins, he's one of the luck, he's a smart ass, he's one of the smartest guys alive. But
although, Jose,
and that's the thing. It's like, but if you hold your money in like gold or silver or Bitcoin, it's completely different. I mean? You're literally, even as we look at gold and silver right now at the prices they are now, we know for a fact that those are manipulated prices and they are not the correct prices. And the reason that Bitcoin hasn't been able to be manipulated so much is because they just started the paper derivatives market in October. They've been doing this with gold and silver for 100 years. You know how much paper, gold, and silver already exist out there, and that's the thing. It's yeah, I feel like I went off on a tangent there, but Max was correct though. And everything in his assessment of what what Bitcoin is going to be in the future, and how we're looking at all these other tokens. They're just going to be other currencies and nothing else, and they're not. And it's not going to really matter if the price, like these tokens or currencies, fluctuate in value as long as Bitcoin doesn't fluctuate in value, just like the dollar doesn't fluctuate. That's the important key,
And definitely the more people that we get into Bitcoin, the less it fluctuates, unless they're selling all the time. But you mentioned that no one would purposely hold 100,000 Toys R Us tokens. But I want to say a possible problem with the decentralized exchange and the idea of these massive token markets is, what if something goes wrong in the middle of the transaction? If I'm going to trade my loaf of bread for Toys R Us tokens for Max's football, what if halfway through that transaction, my exchange connection drops and I'm stuck holding these 100,000 Toys R Us coins the same day that Toys R Us happens to announce their bankruptcy? I'm now not going to be able to trade those tokens for the football. So I just think there's a lot of elements in all these tokens. And I think that if we could do a one-way trade, if I could trade my bread for a 0.01 of a football, that would work. But the problem is I need a whole football. So I'm going to have to trade you some bread and some shoes and a DVD and an old book. And all of those things have different values. And maybe the book is half torn apart or the bread is moldy. I don't know. There's just a lot of elements in these token markets. And I do believe it's a cool idea and it's very science fiction-y, everyone having their own token. But actually working it out in the nuts and bolts of the system, it might take longer than we think. And that's why we might go back to just using Bitcoin or using these tokens less frequently. But
Yeah,
it's an
I
interesting
agree with you,
idea.
Thomas. Like for sure, you know, we're still way too early on this, and we still have a long ways to go. And look, I'm not a tech guy. I'm not a programmer. I don't know how we're going to get from point A to point B. I don't know how we're going to create this. And obviously, you know, all those are valid questions and valid, you know, reasons as to, you know, being scared of this new future. But you know, I really do think that we're going to build it, and that's, you know, not you and me per se, but somebody out there will build this thing. And it's literally like, if we just think of it like this. Just replace Bitcoin with the US dollar and replace all these tokens. You know, I'm doing a little quotations in the air, but replace all these tokens with currencies. We already run this system. We already have the system working right now. Only right now, this system is run by the central banks. And like, for example, if I want to send money to my friend in China, I got to pay all these fees. I got to, you know, go through the SWIFT system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, we have to build it. We're just way too early on it. But again, I don't, if we already have something like Shapeshift or, you know, whatever, like Changelly, I don't see why we wouldn't be able to have that. And again, like even put it on like something like a Lightning Network and
Yes.
everything faster. It's just going to take time. It's not going to be overnight, but we'll get there for sure.
No, dude, we have it already. We do have cross-currency Lightning atomic swaps right now. They are working. I've done a few on testnet. It is amazing. You can instantly route your payment, your Lightning payment, over like 10 different currencies, and come up like at the end of the route with the 11th currency. So this possibility of routing your money through different currencies instantly is mind-blowing. And this is why I think that historically speaking, we usually had only one medium of exchange, because the transaction costs were rather high to interchange them. With stuff like Lightning Network, those costs are zero, virtually zero. So it's really interesting, and this has never happened before. And this is one reason why we say that nobody understands Bitcoin, because, dude, honestly, this is such a mind-blowing thing that how should we even know how this is going to work out? And it's really interesting to test a historically really good theory on currency, which is the Austrian school of economics, and see how this really good economic thought that worked for the last thousands of years, how this will work with a scarce good on top of a non-scarce network as Bitcoin is. And because it is on top of a non-scarce network, this means that the transaction costs are really minimal. So it's really interesting how this all is going to work out. So Jose, thank you very much for calling. It's been a pleasure talking to you. So where can people find more out about you?
Find out more about me, you said?
Yes, exactly.
Yep. What's your Twitter and your YouTube and everything, man?
I mean, type my name in YouTube, you know, that's, you know, and you'll find it. I have my own channel, and yeah, you can hear me talk about all this stuff all the time.
Perfect.
Well, very cool. Thanks so much, Jose. And give us a call anytime. And if you want to send your email to madbitcoins on Twitter through the DMs, I could add you to the World Crypto Network Slack. And maybe if you talk to Corey, if you want to, you could put the audio podcast version of your show onto the World Crypto Network podcast or something like that. So just keep up the good work and keep talking about Bitcoin. Thank
you so much, Thomas. You know, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I've been listening to you for forever. You're really one of the OGs, and it's really nice talking to you, Max. I know we just met. You know, we've just been introduced to the world recently, but you're super awesome, super smart, super amazing, and the last thing I really want to say about this radio show. Seriously, man, this is like the best thing ever. Like this whole, like I'm a fan of AM radio since I was a kid, and like I'm listening to the show, you know, talking, you know, calling in, and yeah, I really feel like I'm calling in one of my old AM radio shows, you know, talking about sports or whatever, conspiracy theories. So thank you so much for doing this, Thomas, and it's amazing, and for real, you know, like I will be hitting you up on Twitter, and yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Great stuff. Thanks so much, Jose. And I agree. It is like the old call-in radio shows, and it's really fun. And it was fun talking to you. We have a lot of the similar ideas. I'm going to let you go for now. But what I really like and what I tell people all the time is that you can speak to your own community, and you can start your own YouTube channel, and you can inform the people that you speak to. and Jose speaks to certain people, and we speak to certain people, and everyone has their own form and mode of communicating, and that'll turn on some people and not others. So we need everybody in this. I mentioned earlier, we need more women in Bitcoin. We need, more everything, more every group. Because whatever group you're in, you can speak to your group, and you're great at it, and you're perfect for it, and you're just the right one. And somebody mentioned in the chat that they listened to Jose's show and that he had a great YouTube channel. So once again, we all have these intermatching groups of fans, and we can all work together and make more shows like this with similar ideas.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because we are such a open source and decentralized organization, which Bitcoin is. We are all co-workers in here. So please, if you hear from someone that has a YouTube channel, plug it, tell your friends about it, check it out. Is it a good one? Is it a bad one? If it is interesting, if it is good, well, give it a like, give it a share. And we need to help each other out here because, as I said now a couple times, this is a grassroots movement. And there is no one company that is going to press a button and all of a sudden Bitcoin is going to be mass adopted. No. Bitcoin will only be mass adopted if we use it and if we perpetuate it to the other people. And there is no centralized media company in Bitcoin. We are the media company and the publisher and the ad publisher and all that kind of stuff. So be open and support each other. We are all co-workers in here.
Absolutely, Max. And I think that's a good point to end on. We're going to try to end the show now. Maybe I'll show the QR code one more time. If you want to donate Bitcoin to the show, the QR code's on your screen now, or you can copy and paste it from the description below. Maybe you're listening on the audio podcast version. Maybe it's a little later. It's a few days from now. But thanks so much to everybody for listening and for calling in. Thanks, Jose, for the nice long call. And check out Jose's YouTube channel. Let's see. It was Jose. Let me see. Jose Arteaga. And that's ARTEAGA. And you can type that into Google, he said. Maybe add Bitcoin on there, but check his work out. Thanks so much, Max. Any closing words?
Well, guys, it's been fascinating talking to you, and we can all not shut up about Bitcoin, and that is a really, really good attribute. And so if you want to find out more about what I do, you can reach out on Twitter at HillebrandMax, and my personal website is towardsliberty.com. And I have two interesting pages on here. So one is my personal library, where I put up a bunch of stuff regarding Austrian economics and Bitcoin. So you can find those two sites at towardsliberty.com/economics or towardsliberty.com/Bitcoin. And I am currently writing part of my bachelor thesis on the fascinating topic of anarchy in money, why we neither need nor want government intervention and regulation in Bitcoin. But this is not just a study on Bitcoin, but in the entire market and in the entire cryptocurrency space. Of course, it is written under the Creative Commons license, and of course, it is written in an open source writing approach. So I would really much appreciate your feedback, and just hit me up with your ideas, and maybe we could call and just discuss this topic even further. Of course, I'm very, very grateful that you take your time out of your busy day to help me with this, and it's definitely appreciated. But yeah, if you have time, please reach out. If don't, we'll ignore it. There are a bunch of other interesting projects that you could support. So thank you very much for your time. And thank you, Thomas, for a fantastic show.
Well, thank you, Max. And I just wanted to echo what you said earlier, that anyone out there right now can make their own Bitcoin YouTube show or their own Bitcoin podcast, and you can have your own opinion, your own view, and your own way of communicating. And that we need everyone to do that. And that even if you start out not very good, if you keep working at it, I guarantee you that you'll get better. I always tell people to try to pattern their show maybe after another show that they like. Like I have the Bitcoin group that's like the McLaughlin group, and then I have this show that's like the call-in shows that I listen to on the radio and so forth. Just pick a format, try to stick to that format, try to do it on a schedule, maybe every week or every day, and try to improve. Try to do a little bit better the next time, as they say on the end of PTI. But that's about it for this episode of Bitcoin Talk Show. Thanks so much for joining us. Until next time, bye-bye.